Good evening and welcome to Fumar Takes. This is our 255th take live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studios of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show. The skies are already being lit up with fireworks. It's 4th of July weekend. America the beautiful. Yes, we've got two beautiful gentlemen here tonight. They're going to be my guests of honor. We're going to be talking some cigars, talking some libations, and of course talking about the upcoming trade show as well. Two of us will try not to sweat to death. One of us will try not to freeze to death. It'll be a fun time. Thank you all for tuning in. And before we get to introductions, though, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible. And that, of course, is our sponsors. And tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate released the latest release from the vault, bringing out the Papas Fritas in the hot and ready H99 blend. Yes, that's right. The H99 is now available in the historic, iconic Papas Fritas size from Drew Estate. You can check out any Drew Diplomat retail. They'll be on your shelves today at a great bargain for a great blend. The H99, of course, the gentleman tonight will agree with that sentiment. It is a great blend in the Papas Fritas size. So check it out and light one up today. And we are excited to welcome back Drew Estate to the PCA trade show this upcoming March for 2024. That's right, the trade show is moving to March and Drew Estate will be there. So looking forward to seeing our good friends at Drew Estate at the PCA trade show once again. And welcome everybody. This is our 255th take. Without further ado, let's welcome in our guests of honor. Two esteemed gentlemen indeed, sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living United. Misters Rob Rasmussen and Randy Griggs. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Bear, it's a pleasure. Everything is going well out here and super hot, Randy, California. But we've got some great cigars going. I've got a gigantic beverage going here. So we've got some ice packs in some places. We can not really talk about that, but we can move forward. I'm just happy to be here. Just happy to be here, man. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Honored to join you on Fumar Takes 255, man. That is a hell of a run you got going for you there, Barry. Yeah, super happy to be here. I'm assuming that Rob and I made the cut as no one else would join you on a holiday weekend. But I'm still honored.
I tried to get you guys on an off weekend, and then Rob was like, I think we could do the second. And I was like, let's do it. Here we go.
Yeah, to be honest, Randy, we chose this weekend. Bear's been on me. We've been trying to plan this for a while, and like between your schedule and my schedule, this last, I don't know, 6 months have been freaking hectic. So we both were lucky enough to be home for a holiday weekend. So I'm just happy to be here. I just wish it wasn't 100 degrees in the studio.
Yeah, tell me about
and
it.
Funny, if you look at everybody here, look at what Randy's wearing. You'd think that he is the one that's in the 100-degree heat.
Right,
but it's like 65 degrees
65.
where Randy lives.
He's got the heater on, that's why.
Yeah, it's 63 and I still have the AC on. Yeah. I don't know why you said you're in California, like all California is the same. I live on the coast, ladies and gentlemen, here in Santa Cruz, California. It is a chilly and cloudy, beautiful summer day. I'm loving the 63 degrees.
All right, let's mute his mic, Bear, and then we can just go forward. Yeah,
sounds great. Well, gentlemen, we are going to be talking some pairings tonight, and without don't want to bury the lead too much, but I do have a tradition here on this show that I would like to bring in. Now I'm going to do something unique. I have we'll talk about my pairings here in a second. So you guys don't know the pairings, but I'm going to let you pick the cigars. So I have two piles here. One more, some of like more lighter cigars, and then some more robust, darker cigars. So wanted to give, so I'm going to give Rob, I'm going to have you pick from the lighter pack, and then Randy, I'm going to have you pick from the more robust pile that I've got. So Rob, let's start with you. I've got the Cavalier of Geneva Inner Circle, the one that they released last year. Looking forward to the Domaine Rouge that they're going to be releasing here in a couple of days, or showcasing to the world rather. The Dunbar Tobacco and Trust Sobre Mesa Brûlée Blue. I believe this was a popular item not too long ago on one of y'all's shows. And then, of course, I've got the keeping with the blue theme here, the Cavalier of Geneva and the Brûlée Blue. I've got the Grand Habano Blue and Green.
And just Grand Habano.
Yeah, and just to fuck things up, I've got the Crux Epicure, Connecticut. So it's red. It's red though. So I messed up. But red, white, and blue. I got the theme going here.
There you go. There you go. That's very patriotic. I'm gonna go with the Cavalier, the first one.
Okay. Inner Circle.
That's I haven't smoked that. I think I've smoked everything else on your list. I haven't smoked the Cavalier, so that's gonna get my vote.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. We'll do that. Now it's the only one that pretty much out of the selection that's not an Ecuadorian Connecticut shade. So, but I view it as a more lighter cigar, more lighter profile and everything. So, all right. So that's from my lighter side. And Randy, you're the inspiration for tonight's exercise. I'm going to be kind of double fisting here a little bit with 2 drinks, and I know you probably got 10, but 2 drinks and 2 cigars. I'm going to be switching back and forth, kind of seeing what's up. All right. So from my pile, I've got the Blackwork Studio Killer Bee. Not the Killer Bee Connecticut, the original one. In the Killer Bee family, I do have the Shaolin as well. So, so if you want me to get a little crazy, the Christoph San Andreas. So nice. And then of course I also have McAuliffe A, one of my favorite daily cigars I like to smoke. And then what's been a theme for the last few days, if you guys have been following me on Instagram, 20 days of United Cigars, I have a United Cigars Toro Maduro as well.
Well, if what you say is true, the Shaolin could be dangerous.
Nice.
That's gonna have to be my vote, right? that's got to be it. You
do look like a character from Mortal Kombat, so I think it's kind of appropriate.
Yeah, well, that's fair. And if I may share with the world, this is my mouse pad. So
so you're not just fronting, as the kids used to say.
As the kids used to say, yeah, indeed. All right, perfect. So we'll talk about my pairings here in a second, but those will be the cigars that I light up. So thanks, gentlemen. Before we kind of got into your picks and everything, wanted to kind of kick things off here. I thought it was rather comical. You mentioned it, Rob, how we kind of planned this a little bit with Randy's absence. I felt like a little bit it was you and I going back and forth and everything, much like this morning when I was confirming everything and all the details. Randy was somewhat absent from our text string, and then he finally caught up about an hour before showtime, so that was nice.
I like how you just tossed him on Front Street like that. That's
like,
fantastic.
Here's the thing. Rob's the host. I'm just the co-host, man. I just show up where Rob tells me to, man. I don't actually have to do a whole lot of work. I just he's like,
I was just wondering
on the X.
I was just wondering, are you just not a texter? Is that it?
No. That's is that it? Am I a texter?
I'll explain. There are ebbs and flows. That's perfect, actually. So pull back the curtain even more and put you even more on Front Street, Randy. We have a text chain between Randy, myself, and Eric and Jordan from Cigar Dojo, because that's where we air our show. And lots of texting back and forth. And I don't know if Randy, if you got a new phone or what, but you responded to a text. This is this morning. You responded to a text chain that was, I kid you not, 4 years old. I don't know how it still existed on your phone or what, but we have a text chain that we text each other like daily. And somehow you got onto the one that was 4 years old. Then we finally got you back onto the regular chain. And then you were texting me, or you're texting Randy and I, and Randy hadn't responded. So I figured, well, I'm going to go to the Dojo one because at least that way other people see it. And if Randy doesn't show up, it's not just me. And as soon as I said, like Randy was texting like vehemently back and forth. And then as soon as I said, hey, are we still on for the show tonight? Crickets for like 2 hours.
That's a lie.
No, I'm just kidding. But no, I don't know, Randy, what happened, but you did end up texting back. No one cares about this, but
the
seriously,
the 4-year-old text thread is absolutely
that's pretty mind blowing that you were able to dig that up.
Yeah, how did that even exist on your phone?
I was doing some maintenance. I had some things going on, it's
just clicking some buttons and doing some things.
I'm excited to be here. Let's just leave it at that.
Well, like every once in a while, I'll get a comment on Facebook from a post from like years ago because the algorithm's just funny like that. And it's not like I posted like I shared a memory or something like that. It's like, no, it's on the original post. And like the last comment was like, 2.5 years ago. And then suddenly like someone pops in with like, oh, this is funny. Or well, how did that work out for you?
Or chimes in. Yeah. It was like that when you get the somebody likes one of your photos on Instagram from like 352 weeks ago. It's like I was showing a little thigh in that one, so I got a like on it somehow. I don't know. Makes you feel good about yourself.
Exploring the hashtags or something, just weird like that.
Yeah,
just makes you feel like you still got it.
Yeah. So, but I was having a hoot with it this morning, Randy. So I got to be honest with you, man. I was like, is this the right number? And he's like, and Rob was like, well, his photo's coming up on my end, and so I think we're good. So I'm like, all right, cool. He'll get it eventually. We'll get there.
And also, to be fair, I have Randy Griggs cell 1, 2, 3 saved in my phone. I never know which one is the right one. It's cell number 2. I don't know what cell number 3 was, but somehow I've got 3 different versions of Randy. So that was the one with the right picture.
Okay.
I should show everybody the picture because the picture that pops up on my phone when Randy calls
you gotta change that shit.
No, it's genius, man. It's
for me.
Photo.
It's the photo with him tossing the wings up. Like that's just
that's
nice.
That's
a classic.
Yeah.
So,
I won first place that day.
I know. Yeah, we talked about it last time. It was great.
Trophy around here somewhere.
I got a medal around here somewhere. I don't know if I told you guys, but I invented hot wings.
You're from Buffalo, Randy?
We're just jealous, Randy. We look at your life and we're jealous.
I'll never forget. The first time I ever flew into Buffalo, I was on my way to Canada. I flew into Buffalo and I stopped in the airport and I got Buffalo wings, thinking that they were going to be outstanding, and they were just meh.
It was the airport.
It was airport food at the end.
Nice. I have to interrupt this for the fireworks have been going off nonstop since the sun went down, and even a little bit before that. And now there are definitely sirens coming down the street.
No.
Someone's lost some fingers already.
Somebody's gonna need some
happy Independence Day, everybody.
Yeah.
Keep firing off those Chinese inventions. Good stuff.
Oh my god.
I love fireworks, man. I don't care. I don't care about the origin, but I do think it's funny. I gotta say. Not what happened in the
Midwest. I mean, you guys get the.
No, I'm in the South.
Is you don't?
But you get the good ones, right?
Texas the Midwest. I consider Texas the Midwest.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I consider it the South. I mean, I'm not proud of it, but we definitely seceded from the Union. So
yeah, that's fair. I used to spend summers in Missouri, and the fireworks out on the farm on the ranch were just. I mean, they're as big as like the big ones you see in the major cities and stuff. Like you don't see that in the cities that we live in and out here in California. I'll tell you that stuff's all illegal out here. You'll burn down the whole state if you light one of those things out here. But I loved 4th of July in the Midwest, man.
Does California like hold a collective breath this weekend? Like, is it like
Yes.
I'm really not trying to make light of it, but like, I mean, gosh, man, the wildfires out there have been just atrocious the last few years. I mean, it's scary as hell sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. We do. That is a good way to put it. We hold our collective breath. They're illegal in like most counties. I think some counties are more illegal than others. But it's
super illegal and illegal.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Like meaning like some counties allow certain ones and some counties don't allow any. I'm here in Contra Costa County. Randy isn't anymore, but he used to be. But like we can get those little things that look like bottles, and you pull the tab, and little things shoot out, little pop bottles, and then we can get the little
pop one,
the little snaps that you throw on the ground. Like that's it. Like I can't even have sparklers, man. I have some sparklers in here. It's like contraband. I go to prison for that. Like state, like go to state. Yeah, it's not just county. I'd be going to state prison for having those.
Nice.
Jeez.
The snaps you throw on the ground.
You know what I'm talking about? Those were
Yeah,
fun when
yeah.
you were a kid.
Those little pop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
there
those
was
are the best, man.
Yeah. Of course, when you get some thrown at your face, and that's when it's a different story. But
A little different, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with a beard, because you never really know. Like there's got to be something igniting in there, and I'm just not ready for that.
You can smell it though. You could definitely smell.
You smell the singe.
The singe. It's like, oh damn it.
Oh,
Something
a man with the size of a beard that you have, Bear, as a cigar smoker, I can imagine you've smelt the singe.
Not as often as you'd think, believe it or not. And I'm not trying to brag about it, but like it's like, yeah, I mean, it's happened on occasion, not gonna lie. So it's more in the mustache, believe it or not. Not that
I believe that.
Not this. It's crazy. But let's go ahead and launch into tonight's major point, which is always brought to you by our good friends at Protocol Cigars. It's always about the people. Yes, cigar people, the people who know about a lifetime, everything about a lifetime of service. Protocol Cigars is more than just pool parties and good times. Well, maybe it is. But behind the fun is a major motivation for service, a motivation for giving back. From the original Protocol Blue to the latest release in the Lawman series, Phoebe Cousins, Protocol has always been about honor, passion, and yes, the people. It's what their life's work has been and always will be about. Power of the P, Protocol Cigars. So, gentlemen, we're here to talk about a lot of different things, but of course, the main forte in y'all's repertoire, your resume, if you will, is all about pairings and everything. So we're going to have a little fun with pairings tonight. You guys have already picked my cigars. I have the Cavalier of Geneva Inner Circle selected by Rob, and I have the Killer Bee Shaolin from Blackwork Studio selected by Randy. And here are my pairings. And I think these hit. And this is going to be kind of strange. Like most people like to have lighter body, creamier cigars, like Connecticut shade cigars with their coffee in the morning, and I do enjoy that. But my preferred pairing with coffee actually is darker, more robust cigars. So I'll be pairing the Shaolin with a delectable blend from, yes, you guessed it, Starbucks coffee. And then my other pairing will be the Cavalier Geneva Inner Circle with some Tequila, Dison Tequila Reposado. Yes.
Nice.
That is, I love tequila. I love a good whiskey. Love a good bourbon. But tequila has been my go-to libation and spirit for quite some time. And definitely a lot more, I don't know, last couple of years, even more so. There's a lot of good tequilas out there. Good stuff. So, Rob, why don't you do us the honors? What are you smoking and what did you pair it with?
All right. I'm going with, I've got the Don Carlos. Come on, baby. Focus. There we go. This is the Anniversario 2007. So this cigar has got some age on it. I think this one came out circa Edición de Anniversario 2007. It came out in, what year was this? 2013? 2012, 2013.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so that's what I'm smoking. Just dug this one out of the humidor. I've been doing this cigar media thing for a while, so there's a lot of things bouncing around in the humidor there that for whatever reason sometimes things just hang around. This one's hung around for a while, so I thought why not burn that one tonight. And I am pairing a delicious mojito, which it looks very dark. Obviously, it's not a clear mojito. I used Havana Club 7 year, the Añejo 7, the last of my of that bottle that I picked up when I was in Mexico. So that's what I'm going with some limes that I purchased from Safeway, Randy, and some it's just like the look on your face. Randy's always talking about how he plants a lime tree, and it's all homegrown stuff. He makes his own sugar. I don't know how he does it. But if you tune into our show, you'll understand. But I did, however, grow the mint in my backyard because anybody with any sort of, you could just have a square foot and like 2 drops of water and you can grow some mint. That stuff is like a weed. You can grow it anywhere. But
that's true story.
yeah, fresh mint and some what did I say? Havana Club 7-year and 7-year whatever, the black bottle. That's what I'm drinking.
Mint and basil. Right. So
oh yeah, basil for whatever reason I can't grow it.
Interesting.
I just can't. I can't do it. It always
they're
dies.
invasive. What do you know?
It always maybe I try too hard. Like I pay attention to it and like water it and stuff. I've been trying to grow pumpkins for these last couple of years. I mean, I don't know if you know, folks in the audience are familiar with me or whatever, but I love Halloween. And so I've been trying to grow pumpkins, and it turns out, Randy, in California, you have to plant pumpkins in like March if you want to have them for October, which always seems really early for me. But this year I didn't plant my own. I bought some pre-planted, already started seedlings, if you will,
juvenile plants, if you will.
Indeed. Family show, Randy. And I've got tons of pumpkins, like the size of freaking cantaloupes already. But I do go out there. I water them every morning. I talk to them. I read them haikus and stuff to make sure that they're going to grow.
That's the secret.
It's the haiku, right? It's really underrated when it comes to gardening. But yeah, I can grow mint, and now I can grow pumpkins. Hopefully they make it. It's 100 degrees though. Who knows if they're going to survive? I'll stop rambling. Randy, what's your pairing?
Before actually go ahead, Randy, and then I'll tell us what the goal was tonight. I messed up that cue. Go ahead, Randy, please.
Oh, well, sorry, well, I don't want to give it away now, Bear, but Bear challenged us to pair one of our favorite pairings that we go back to so frequently. Rob immediately assumed that I would do the Padron 1926 and Cigar City Maduro. And so that's what led him to the lovely Cameroon wrapped Don Carlos and a mojito. And lo and behold, I also showed up to the show with a Arturo Fuente, Don Carlos, and a mojito. So I will say I also grew the mint myself. I have 2 different varietals of mint in my garden. And so I went half and half on the mint.
Of course you do.
And sugar cane is how you make your own sugar, Rob. It's sugar cane. Okay.
So you got like a sugar cane farm in your backyard? Because that's awesome.
I didn't make my own sugar, but you say you didn't know how it was done. I at least know how I would accomplish.
Does all sugar come from sugar cane? Like, I'm really dumb when it comes to, I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah. It does? Okay.
Yeah, it's all just different levels of refinement, really. Right. You know, from molasses to piloncillo to cane, you know, just white table sugar. Yeah. Obviously you got your demerara's. Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, is it like primings? To bring it back to
it's like primings. Yeah, let's go with that.
See what I do? I bring it full circle. I bring us back.
Demerara is like a Ligero sugar.
Yeah. I like that.
So, well, I've got the first one. I haven't lit up the inner circle yet, but I'm pairing the Shaolin with coffee. And like Randy said, what I challenged with the gentleman with tonight was just bringing back pairings that kind of hit. Like the goal of y'all's show is you guys kind of love to explore. I mean, it's called Flavor Odyssey, so you guys explore a lot of different things, and sometimes you go really, you know, off the beaten path and really get, you know, crazy and explore with a lot of stuff. And so I wanted to kind of bring it home a little bit and just, not step on your toes too much, but bring it home to in the sense of like what always hits for y'all. So what is it about the mojito that really hits with that Cameroon wrapper and the Don Carlos for you, Rob?
That's a really good question, and it's hard to answer because, and Randy and I, we talk about this a lot, and this is a topic that we cover a lot on our show, is citrus and how that bright citrus and acidity can pair with the different flavors that you're getting from, all your different types of tobaccos, right? So all your different types of cigars, and there's something about this Cameroon, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. Flavor memory is a big thing too. So like whenever you have some sort of flavor that kind of sends you back to another place that resonates for you, that's how whenever if I'm writing a review for a cigar, like that ever really happens. It's been a couple of years, but that to me, like that's where those flavor components come from. It's a flavor memory. And I think the first time that I ever paired a cigar with a mojito was at Casa Fuente in Las Vegas with Randy and the Cigar Dojo crew in 2019. Because up until then I had always avoided anything with citrus in it. And that we smoked the Casa Fuente that night, which I think has a very similar wrapper, Randy, if I'm correct. It's not, I don't know if it's the exact same wrapper as this, but I think it's pretty close. And it's something about it just works. And sometimes that's okay with pairing. Randy, you might have a better answer than I do. But for me, I get an earthy sweetness from the cigar. I get an earthy sweetness from that sugar cane, and the brightness of the lime to me, and the mint is really just almost like a palate cleanser, but the brightness of the lime really kind of pulls everything together on both sides for me. So it's kind of for me, it's that kind of earthy sweet. Nice. And whenever I talk about earthy sweet, I think of sugarcane, and apparently that's where all sugar comes from. So we're all learning something tonight.
Well, I wonder how the mojito would actually complement even more a more aged Don Carlos's and stuff, because like when this happens pretty consistently across the board with a lot of Fuentes Cameroons that they get from the Mirafels, is that after like 2 years they kind of like they start to bring out this mintiness, and if you're not prepared for it, it can be really off-putting. But if you know what you're getting into with an aged Fuente, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, like this, it's pretty typical. So I wonder if that'd be an interesting side project to put some back, and then make a really nice mojito and see how it complements with a more aged Fuente. See how that goes.
It's funny, and this is how suggestive all this stuff can be. This is an aged Fuente. This is 10-year-old.
Oh, that's right, cigar. Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I've never really experienced that mint flavor from the cigar. And I take a puff, and sure enough, I taste mint. So it's it's like you said, Randy, you're a beer judge, and if anybody says anything, when you're all judging a beer, it has to be quiet, right? Because as soon as somebody says, oh, this tastes like strawberry donuts, now everybody's going to taste strawberry freaking donuts. So
true.
It's interesting. I've never really experienced that kind of minty flavor, but I do get a bit of more of an I think of it as more of like an herbal spice.
Yeah, herbal spice.
Which, I mean, yeah, that's basically kind of what mint is, but I don't think I've ever put the mint label on it, but that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Like you said, so often we go to anise or cardamom when we're talking about the kind of that herbal note in cigars. I find cardamom to be very kind of along that mentholish kind of vibe as well. So there's definitely, like you said, Rob, I don't know that I've used mint specifically as a descriptor for just smoking a cigar before, but that family of herbs and spices definitely has shown its has reared its head, if you will, even to a note of clove would be, I'd say, in that same family. For me, one of the things about this pairing, why I enjoy it so much, I usually consider this a contrasting pairing. Contrasting pairing is always the hardest thing that you can do at any time you're trying to pair any two elements. When things contrast on your palate, they usually conflict, they usually fight each other, they usually like stand apart, and often create bitterness or a sharp characteristic that's typically seen as unpleasant on the palate. And so when you can find things that are very on polar ends of the spectrum that work well together, it creates a really exciting and note-taking moment on your palate in general. So for me, the Don Carlos, the Cameroon wrapper, I always think of it as being very, very woody, very, very like hay and like I think of burlap and rope and like those mustier characteristics with a lot of cinnamon. And so when you pair that with the sweetness and the mint, I mean, you're going to the other end of the spectrum. And so often, again, when you're dealing with flavor characteristics that are opposing each other, it usually creates an unpleasant sensory experience. And so I feel like that's one of the reasons why this one rings so true with me, because it's just like, in a lot of ways, if you were to write these down and look at a flavor wheel and a flavor spider map and try and figure out chemically why they work, on paper they shouldn't, and then somehow it's just so enjoyable and pleasant and extreme. Yeah, and no one would describe, I don't think, a Don Carlos as a high intensity flavored cigar, or even a mojito, all that intense. Obviously that mint kind of pushes it more in, more little more intensity. But I feel like two medium to medium plus at most intensity elements come off as hyper intense when they combine on your palate. And so I use this term all the time on our show, Bear, but like for me, the greatest pairings are when you find that the experience is greater than that of the sum of its parts. Where it's just like, I like this one a lot, I like this one a lot, but man, when they're together, it creates this whole other level of experience and pleasure from a flavor standpoint that's transcendent in some ways, and like really like creates that flavor memory. To Rob's point, like that night or those nights when we've gone to Costa Fuente in Vegas together, like those ring out as some of our favorite memories. Every time we all get together as a bunch of buddies and just like talk, those always stand out as some of our best memories. And like what we did that evening or what happened at that event wasn't particularly more exciting than other times we had been together or hung out, but we did have that pairing, and that like somehow like ingrains that experience into our memories. Like, oh man, remember that one time with the mojitos? Yeah. It's kind of different.
Yeah. I don't remember how we got there, Randy, and I don't remember how we got home, but I remember the pairing.
And how it just worked. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's funny because it doesn't seem like it should work. And like I said, like I had always steered away from fruity kind of flavors, especially bright citrus, for that tartness and the acidity, because that can be really like tartness and acidity and bitterness are the hardest things in my mind to pair with, because they're such strong components, strong flavor components, and everyone reacts differently to this stuff. But like pairing with an IPA, I mean, Randy and I both love beer. We both have worked in the beer industry, but pairing with an IPA is tough. But if you find that right pairing, sometimes it doesn't have to make any sense. Flavor subjective. I smoke a cigar and I'm going to taste leather and chocolate and some coffee and maybe some barnyard notes, and you could smoke it and you're like, well, I taste molasses and I don't know, charred sugar and creme brulee or something. We can have the same cigar and totally different experiences. So it is interesting. I do think it's kind of funny that Randy and I ended up picking the same thing. I thought for sure you were going with a rye old fashioned, because you can't stop drinking rye old fashions on our show. So I figured now that you had a chance to do it and we wouldn't make fun of you, you would really go for it. But and I thought I was taking the high road, leaving that one for you, because the first cigar I picked out of the humidor, I didn't even realize I had any more, was a Padron 26 Maduro, and I was like, oh, freaking perfect. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do a rye old fashioned. Like, now Randy's probably gonna do that, so I'll go in this other direction. But sure enough, we did the same thing.
Well, that's all right. I actually have an old fashioned that I'm going to talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, you've got a backup.
There you go. For my second round.
He's got his wife making it in the next room. She's just going to make it. She's going to come at entrance. It's going to be one of those smoked rye old fashions too. He's going to pull off and just
I haven't done enough with smoke in my cocktails yet. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm gonna challenge myself this season to introduce that into.
I figured that'd be like your thing, man.
It feels like it should be. I've only experienced it a couple of times at some like foo events that I've gone to for work, where like they really laid it out and they had like it's like charred teak wood smoke and like some really like nice stuff. I haven't imbibed in the activity at home yet.
It's kind of the simplicity of like my drinking a little bit. Like I don't drink as much beer as I used to. I hardly drink beer anymore. It's really quite sad. It raises my blood, my heart rate. Like alcohol doesn't. Like, well, not all alcohol, but beer does. So, and like I can't come down from it. Like if I have like, I can have one every now and then, but I like maybe two. But if I had, if I do three or four or something, especially when it's really hot. No matter how cold the beer is, it makes you feel good. It tastes fantastic. Yeah, like my heart rate will just stay jacked for like another 12 hours.
I'm
It's
gonna
crazy.
send you a case of beer and some Ambien.
See what happens. I'll be the first person to like not go to sleep on Ambien or something. That'd be crazy.
The beer to get you up and the Ambien to level you out.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing about like
the Wolf of the Wall Street version. Right here.
That's the thing. Like I remember it was pre-COVID when I kind of put a needle on it because I'd been doing it. You know, I'd had beer all the time for the last few years and stuff, but it was the last company event my company had before COVID, and I was like, man, I'm getting that feeling again. I don't know what the fuck's going on. And I looked down at my watch because you know my watch tracks my heart rate and stuff, and my resting heart rate sitting typically like this right now is like anywhere from 60 to 65. It's relatively normal, right? But man, I was sitting there. I was sitting. And I wasn't even standing or walking around. I was sitting there I was on my like second, maybe third beer. And my heart rate was sitting at 120.
Whoa.
Oh.
Yeah. And like
I thought you were gonna say like high 80s. You went straight 120.
it doubled,
It
man.
takes me 10 minutes of cardio at the gym before I hit 120.
So straight like to your point, Randy, that's all cardio, right? So like you're thinking like you're burning, like I was burning every bit of calorie I was drinking, which, okay, that sounds cool. Except for like, by the time it was like at the end of the day, like I was just fucking tanked, man. Like not drunk. I was exhausted, just dead ass tired. Like I couldn't even lift my arms. It was just crazy. Just absolutely crazy.
So it's mostly a tequila diet now for your imbibing pleasure.
Yeah, well, no, I can do any kind of spirit. I'm fine. It's crazy. Like it does not matter. Darker beers I tend to be okay with too. Like I can down a couple Guinnesses and it doesn't have the effect on me.
Could be a hop thing.
Yeah, there's got to be there's an allergy in there somewhere.
Yeah,
so
that's interesting.
That's what I was thinking. People do have reactions to hops, no doubt about that. But I do love that you've pointed out that you've because a lot of people swear they love tequila and everything, but I love that you even pointed out that like over the last few years, you found yourself imbibing and enjoying tequilas more. And I don't feel like it's any coincidence. Tequila is the fastest growing spirit, second only to mezcal. Pardon me. Mezcal is the fastest growing, but it's a much smaller base, so the percentages seem higher. But tequila is really the fastest growing, like by volume, spirit in America. And it's led to so many like new brands releasing tequilas and different kind of expressions of tequila in general. And so we're living in the age of tequila right now. So it's a good time to get out there and do some experimenting and see what's available in your neighborhood. There's no doubt about that.
You know who loves a great tequila is the chief of broadleaf himself, Mr. Nick Melillo.
Is that right?
Yeah. We actually did a tequila pairing last time I had him on, and it was just absolutely fantastic. It really went well with a couple of his cigars. So to that point though, really enjoying both. I've kind of gone back and forth. The Inner Circle really goes really well with the coffee, and the Shaolin is excellent with this tequila. The tequila, to your point, Randy, about the demand that's gone up, it's because of at one point in the early 2000s, like 2005, 2006, I remember reading this article how Asia was the grand demand on Jose Cuervo, and it was something obnoxious that you wouldn't think is accurate. It's like one of those stats, like it's you'll appreciate this, Rob. It's like one of those Barry Bond stats that can't be real but really were, 92% at one point of Jose Cuervo's production was going to Asia.
Whoa.
Because of the demand. Yeah. It was like something stupid like that. I mean, and let's face it, we like margaritas here in the States. Like that's crazy. That's nuts.
Yeah,
so
that's 92%. Wow.
Yeah,
I would have called BS on that. Yeah.
That was crazy. So
Jose Cuervo is such a massive company. And I love that you brought them up because I think that's one of the great things too that we've seen, that even brands, and hell, Rob just figured this out recently. He's been drinking forget which one it was, but Rob's been swearing up and down about a Jack Daniel's product that he's been really enjoying. He got a bottle of recently. Isn't that right?
The Jack Daniel's 10-year, which I hadn't had. There's a couple actually. I've never really drank much Jack. I mean, other than like Jack and Coke or whatever. But they've got a couple of small, like easier to find releases. Jack Daniel's Bonded and the Sour Mash, which are both about like $30 a bottle, and you can find both of those. I haven't had the Sour Mash. I've heard it's really good, but the single barrel is like a $30 bottle, and it's pretty damn good. My wife got me a bottle of that at Costco, but I got lucky and found a bottle of the Jack Daniel's 10. They have a 10-year and a 12-year that come out. I don't think they come out every year. It's like every other year, something like that. It's allocated. It's hard to find, blah, blah, blah. It's like $60 if you find it. Then secondary market's like $399, some crazy nonsense like that. But I saw it at Costco, and it was like one bottle per person. So I bought it just on a whim. And it's one of the best whiskeys I've ever had. It's super, super good.
Well, and to that point, it's making my point perfectly of just like, Cuervo has such a bad name because of gold. It's just like everyone relates the name Jose Cuervo to like some really bad headache they had just out of high school. And I had the opportunity a couple of years ago to head down to Tequila, Mexico, and spend some time down there and go to Mundo Cuervo, which is their main factory. And you go in. I was blown away by how many known brands that were very recognizable in their store that I had no idea were Cuervo brands. It's Centario, obviously 1800s made a run. They're putting a lot more marketing dollars behind that, but they've got a slew of different tequilas that are just remarkable, and their like facilities is fully state of the art. Their barrel room has these humidity driven misting system in their barrel house that when the humidity drops even by 1%, the misters turn on to keep moisture in the barrels that prevents the angel share, the evaporation, because tequila does not depend on the evaporation the same way that like bourbon does. Like bourbon, you want it to concentrate and have some evaporation that like actually kind of creates more of a caramel character and a higher ABV. They don't do that with like a silver tequila, and so they don't want it to evaporate. So they have this misting system that keeps their barrels nice and humid. But we went through and we tasted like a whole panel. I ended up, with a sliced open foot on stage, singing with the mariachis at the end of the night. But they do an amazing.
Sounds like a Tuesday with you, Randy. But
yeah, boy, we gotta travel together, man. You'll have I promise you'll have stories to tell, if nothing else.
Travel with Randy, get a nice big Airbnb. You give him the second biggest bedroom, and he will promise to make breakfast for everybody in the morning. And it's a really good breakfast. He's totally worth it. It's worth all the BS that you have to put up with, like making sure he gets home, not getting arrested, all that kind of stuff. It's totally worth it. And the weird tattoos that you end up with too is kind of fun. Like I've got 3 that I don't even remember ever getting. One of them is his face. I had no idea that even happened.
It's the Flavor Odyssey coin image.
Yeah.
I won't tell you where it is. It's his story to tell.
It's either like you got to guess, is it the left nipple or the right nipple? I mean, that's really the only question.
But I'll tell you, you want to know what one of the most interesting brands that Jose Cuervo makes that I would have never guessed is Cholula hot sauce, actually.
Yes.
Ooh, I love some Cholula, man.
Yeah, everyone knows. I had no idea. It's a Cuervo brand product.
It's the iconic wooden cap, man.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
I had some on a sandwich.
I had some on a
sandwich
Chipotle guy.
Today.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah. You're all about Cuervo.
Yeah. Dude, I love me some hot sauce too. So that can be we put a pin in that. We could talk about
that's a whole separate episode, right?
Yeah,
there.
I was gonna say hot sauce can be the next time I have you guys on. So
that was Randy's nickname in college, by the way.
Hot sauce, I believe it. or muy caliente for short.
I answer to both.
All right, Caliente. Well, you're up on this next one. This next segment, we're going to bring in our presidential trivia segment. It is multiple choice. I thought about doing something with the charity that she chose a little bit. But I do have an interesting fact that will be fun about that here in a second, Randy, when we get to that. Um, tonight's presidential trivia segment is always brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, the Firecracker, and the highly acclaimed Atabay, Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke one today and start living united. Yes, it's time for the presidential trivia segment. So, guys, it's pretty easy. It's a multiple choice question, and I tried to tailor it a little bit towards what we're talking about or who my guest is. And so, since we're talking about libations and talking about spirits, I thought I'd do some deep diving on this. A lot of presidents have had some favorite beverages over the years, and some good ones. And except for Abraham Lincoln, who's my favorite president, his favorite beverage was literally water. Man, no. Guy delivered one of the most iconic speeches in American history in the Gettysburg Address, and he couldn't come up with anything more interesting than H2O. But that's fine. But this president, which president, had a near daily lineup that consisted of starting his day with a hard cider, then moving on to a porter beer, some rum, and then copious amounts of Madeira? Was it A, William Howard Taft, B, Ulysses S. Grant, C, John Adams, or D, George W. Bush? So, Randy, I'll give you first crack at it.
B,
Ulysses S. Grant. Okay.
I think that would probably be, I was going to say, like, for whatever reason, when you were explaining that, I was thinking Teddy Roosevelt, but I didn't. That obviously he wasn't one of the guesses. What are the options again?
Okay. William Howard Taft, Ulysses S. Grant, which is what Randy picked.
Right.
C, John Adams, or D, George W. Bush. So the second Bush.
I'm going to go W. I think it was the dub.
Adams.
Yeah, probably.
So it is actually John Adams, believe it or not. Yes. So
I kind of knew that. I kind of almost knew that, but you threw me off with the Madeira because that I've never heard of.
Well, so the interesting thing about that, like, that was that you totally went chalk, Randy, because Ulysses S. Grant was an alcoholic, like full blown, like just smoking cigars, cheaping on cigars, and then also just drunk half the time. So, I mean, you weren't too far off. Now, the funny thing about Rob's pick is that I threw that in there as a curveball. George W. is actually is a recovering alcoholic. So he actually.
Well, now I feel like a jerk.
So Dr. Pepper was his beverage of choice.
Oh,
I do like a Dr. Pepper though. I'm not a big soda guy, but if I gotta go, I'm going with the Dr. Pepper.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. If I remember when his daddy was president and he was the owner of the Texas Rangers, he was known as a little bit of a playboy and got himself into some trouble.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I forgot he was full blown recovery, but I did remember that he had to like right the ship at some point before his presidency.
That's the W that I was thinking of, I think, when I made the guess. But it's funny. As soon as I said it, I was thinking it was probably John Adams, and you said the same thing, and sure enough, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, what I love about your pick that you wanted to throw in there, Rob, was is that Teddy was a big fan of something that is pretty darn close to what you guys are drinking. So it's it was a mint julep was his drink of choice. So the mint, the rye that Randy is so partial to normally. He liked to throw a little brandy in his.
Ooh, like a floater?
Yeah, I guess
like
something.
A little brandy.
That's it's like Vieux Carré with some mint.
Kind of, yeah. That's funny. The other pairing that I was thinking about, Randy, was the Tatuaje Tuxtla. But I didn't have a Tuxtla 7, but that was the one that we did specifically, and the Vieux Carré. Because the Vieux Carré, I'll tell you what, if anybody watching, if you love cigars, and if you know what a Vieux Carré is, or if you don't know, look it up, because it's a fantastic. I can't think of the proportions of the alcohol off the top of my head to tell everybody the recipe, but Vieux Carré is one of those drinks that sounds, very pinkies up, and you're always going to find it in like those old school classic bars. I think its origins come from New Orleans. But that is a damn fine cocktail, especially with any cigar, just about any. I would say any Habano or darker. Maybe a Connecticut, you're going to run it over, but that's a fantastic pairing.
Yeah, you go equal parts whiskey, cognac, vermouth, and some Benedictine. My goodness, it is a absolute perfect cocktail for a cigar pairing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So Randy, I got a recipe for you. Ready? This is I stored this up for this segment in particular. It's called McKinley's Delight. It's named for President William McKinley, who departed, unfortunately, this earth a little too shortly as he was assassinated, which led to Teddy Roosevelt being president. So, but William McKinley had a signature cocktail, obviously that was named. So you're gonna love this. 3 ounces of rye whiskey, strong rye whiskey, at least 100 proof. Okay. 1 ounce sweet vermouth, 2 dashes of cherry brandy, and a dash of, yes, gentlemen, you guessed it, absinthe.
Ooh, I was going to say absinthe when you said a dash.
As soon as you started getting into older president drinking habits, I'm surprised it took this long for absinthe to come up. I was absolutely expecting when you said that Teddy's when you said he had a favorite before you said mint julep, my guess would have been absinthe 100%.
So that was 3 ounces of 100 proof rye.
Yeah.
1 ounce of sweet vermouth.
Correct.
That's a big ass cocktail right there.
2 dashes of cherry brandy and a dash of absinthe. So it's like it's straight fucking alcohol. There's like
that's 4 ounces of just straight booze in one drink.
Any problem?
Yeah.
Randy's like, I got 2 going on right now. I don't know what's.
Yeah, that's.
I see it.
Again, just a Tuesday.
So
I support it.
So Randy, make sure you're only 4 drinks in before you make that concoction for your next Flavor Odyssey episode.
Hey Bear, can I throw a question at you?
Sure.
So I mean, it's the 4th of July weekend, so we're all thinking kind of about American history. I've realized I was watching National Treasure last night.
Oh yeah,
it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah,
that was probably like
complete fiction, but I fucking love it. I dig it.
Totally, yeah, it's fun. But he's dropping like all these different. You're looking into all this different history and some like presidential facts and some stuff about the history of the country. And as you say, a lot of it is fictitious, but some of it's based in fact, right?
Sure.
And I realized that like my knowledge of American history is terrible, like absolutely terrible. If I wanted to start learning about American history, could you point me in the direction of like 1 or 2 books that you really like?
Like an overall general history of the of U.S. history,
or just any of your favorites. Maybe it's about someone specific or a biography about somebody or whatever.
So if you really want to have fun, this is a book that I discovered shortly before I met Miguel Shodell for the first time, and we bonded over this book. It's called Fighting with Presidents. It's a satirical piece, but it's based in fact. I forgot the author. I'm looking it up. So I'll post the link. It's called How to Fight with Presidents: Defending Yourself Against the badasses who ran this country. And it goes into what I've always held true about why I love presidential trivia in the first place, is because you have to be fucking crazy to run for office. Like, you just have to be nuts. Like everyone is just absolutely outside their mind, because every day you wake up and half the country hates you and half the country loves you. And every decision you ever make, from the fucking cereal that you pick for breakfast to like, should I drop a nuke on this country, is criticized with that margin. Like, like you're half wrong, half right every day. I mean, to live like that to live like that. Right? Yeah. If you're lucky, that's the best case scenario. Is it a 50-50 shot, right? So it's just absolutely crazy. I think they're absolutely nuts. But it's Daniel O'Brien is the author, and he writes. It's wonderful. It's a really great fast read. Takes you through all the presidents. It's very comical, and I think it's incredibly well written, and it's fantastic. But my favorite book. One of my favorite authors is Doris Kearns Goodwin. She is a brilliant historian. And a couple of the ones that Team of Rivals, which is the political genius of Abraham Lincoln. His cabinet consisted of people that actually hated him. and which goes back to one of my favorite sayings. Which if you're smart, surround yourself with smart people who disagree with you. And if you're dumb, surround yourself with smart people. Well, Abraham Lincoln was very smart, and so he surrounded himself with a lot of people that disagreed with him, including his famous Secretary of State, William Seward, who they were actually very bitter rivals. They ran against each other in the presidential election, and they agreed almost on nothing for the most part. And they became actually quite good friends over the next, 4 years before Lincoln was assassinated just a couple of weeks into his second term. So, and he himself, Seward himself, almost lost his life too in that assassination conspiracy. So, pretty cool stuff. So, Team of Rivals is really great. But if you're a fan of Teddy, she also wrote The Bully Pulpit, which is Theodore Roosevelt, William Howard Taft, and the Golden Age of Journalism, which I think you'd appreciate. So, some really great stuff, really great work. She's a brilliant historian. I love her. She's fantastic.
Cool. Yeah, I just want to throw that at you. I've been as you know, we Bear and I are we've got a little Facebook chat group. With a bunch of cigar guys. We all talk about baseball, and I've been devouring some baseball history books, and just some about specific athletes and just about the game in general. Just finished one about Bo Jackson.
Awesome.
The last folk hero by Jeff Pearlman. It was phenomenal book. It's so good. And I always used to say, like, if I had 3 wishes, one of my wishes would be to fix Bo's hip, because he was a transcendent athlete.
Yeah.
But no, I've just, given the time of year and thinking of American history, it just was a question that I figured you'd have a good answer for, and of course you did. You gave me 3 books to add to my list, so thank you.
Absolutely. I think the interesting question about Bo is, like, if he had actually had a full career in both sports, and no doubt he would have been potentially Hall of Fame in both sports, if not one, and just an incredible athlete, as you said. It would be an interesting discussion today, I think, who's the better athlete, Shohei Ohtani or Bo Jackson. And like sheer athletic ability, everyone's probably like rolling their eyes. Of course, it's Bo Jackson, Bear. But like, when you think about the dual difficulty of what Ohtani has to do on a daily basis, it's, compared to just basically two different sports. But I don't know. It would be an interesting discussion, I think.
Yeah. And you and I could have it. Randy would fall asleep. And we'd lose half our audience, but to me, man,
Bo was a Raider, roll Tide and Raider Nation all day.
Yeah.
I'll chop it up,
dude.
With Bo.
Don't roll Tide. He was from Auburn, man.
Auburn. I knew it was connected somehow to Alabama.
Yeah,
that's right. The bitter rival of Alabama, not Alabama.
Yeah. If you liked Bo, Randy, you should read the book. It's really good. It's a fast read.
He was like, him and Wade Boggs were my first 2, like, they were the first athletes I knew who they were as a young child. Yeah, the first A's game I ever went to, I'm sorry, not Wade Boggs, Carney Lansford is who I was thinking. They're both British.
I was gonna say Wade Boggs. That's an odd one for you.
No. Yeah. Carney Lansford hit a grand slam my first A's game I ever went to live.
Oh, wow.
As a child. I'm pretty sure he hit 2 in his career or something like that. But
like that, you were there for it. You were the one there.
I was an 8-year-old there for one of them. My dad was a big Bo Jackson fan.
Yeah. Anyway, I got us off topic, but that's a great book if anyone's interested. And I just like Jeff Pearlman. I'm reading his book about the USFL now, because the USFL. When you start talking about Bo Jackson, you can't talk about Bo Jackson without talking about Herschel Walker. And then if you're going to talk about Herschel Walker, you're talking about the USFL. So
yeah,
that's an interesting. I'm about halfway through that one too, and that's
good
a lot
stuff.
of fun.
Good
anyway,
stuff. I love
get us
Jeff
back
Pearlman
on track. Get us back on track, Bear.
So that was our presidential trivia segment, brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Domingos, Bandolero, Garofalo, the Firecracker, and the highly acclaimed Atabey, Byron, and now Alfonso Lyons from Selected Tobacco. Smoke one today and start living united. And if you're following me on Instagram, 20 days of United Cigars is almost up. We'll be firing up a Firecracker, the cigar, on July 4th in just a couple of days. So get your United Cigars ready. We're going to have a blast on July 4th. So moving back to our topic tonight, guys, we've been talking about the pairings and everything. So how are you guys? How are those progressing for you? You probably in the final third of your cigar here. I've been going back and forth. So
I'm about halfway through of the Don Carlos Anniversario 2007. It's lost some of its punch. As Randy said to me, these aren't really punchy cigars to begin with. These are more flavor-driven cigars, not a ton of Lajero in there or anything like that. Still get some nice notes from it. It's still a fun cigar to smoke. This probably would have been much better about 5 years ago. But the pairing that kind of earthy sweet, I'm still getting that from the cigar. There's a cinnamon characteristic that's popping up, and I don't know if somebody said cinnamon earlier or whatever, if that's really what's jumping into my mind here. But that synergy between that earthy sweet from the drink, and I think I'm just more susceptible, is that the right term, of that to that flavor, or more like cognizant of that flavor, because I can pick it out whenever there's something that's got like that rum sweetness. I can always pick out that flavor, and I feel like I find that in cigars a lot, and I get that same sweetness here, which is, to me, Randy, the flavor hook between these two. The intensity is kind of spot on. Neither one is being run over by the other. I don't know if I would go so far as to say this is a rising tide lifts all boats here, but it is still very enjoyable. I think if this were, I think there's a 2017 version of the cigar as well. If I was smoking that one, I'd probably be enjoying it a lot more.
Randy?
Well, mine is mine's probably 6-month-old Don Carlos. I buy boxes of these more than I would like to care to admit. And so I've got a fresh one. It's bright. It's sharp. Mine is punchy. Actually, this has a little bit more of a pepperiness than I recall. From the last one I smoked like 3 days ago. But it's going great as I'm finishing up my second mojito here already. So I'm way ahead of the curve on
second since the show started, right? Like that's like your fourth.
Yeah, it's that. Right. Oh, second since the show started. Yeah, I was
16th overall.
Yeah. I was drinking gin and tonics this afternoon. I think I had 4 gin and tonics and an Imperial Hazy before I came on the show. But yeah, second mojito since the show got started. So as I'm wrapping up with this, and I am down to just a little more than the final third here on mine. I'm inspired though by what you're smoking on there, because I love what you said, that it's so common that we go to the creamy coffee with the Connecticut as a morning smoke. And Rob and I always talk on our show about how we kind of go a different way, and I feel like, Bear, chime in, let me know how you see this. But I feel like, I always say this about brewers drink more Pilsner, where like beer drinkers drink more IPA. I feel like cigar guys, we finish the night lighter, rather than like your standard everyday cigar smoker guy might start his day with that Connecticut and finish with the double Lajero. I feel like I kind of work backwards, and I start heavier and richer and chocolatier, and like my last cigar of the night is often a brulee. And so I like where you're going with the like dark, strong, rich and coffee. And today I'm doing some market research for work on pre-made lattes in a can. So I picked up some Illy and some Columba latte coffees, and so I'm gonna go grab myself a shot of coffee liqueur. I'm gonna spike the Illy latte coffee that I'm drinking. I'm gonna try that with the Bishop's blend. If I can join you on the
dark side,
on the dark side, and the James Brown Black Label kick.
Nice. All right. Well, kind of wanted to speaking of the pairings and everything, I really enjoyed the back end stretch of this season of the Flavor Odyssey, which, by the way, you guys can check out, by you guys being the audience, you guys can check out the Flavor Odyssey hosted by these two fine gentlemen every Wednesday, correct, guys?
Every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, live on the Cigar Dojo Facebook page. You can catch us on. We're live on YouTube as well for the Cigar Dojo YouTube channel.
Fantastic. Do you guys broadcast on Facebook too?
Mm-hmm.
I usually catch it
Facebook
on the
Live,
downloads. I confess Wednesday nights is usually pretty busy for me. And so I usually catch you guys catch your shows on podcast, so I download it later and stuff. So it's usually a good listen for me. And Thursday or Friday.
Thanks for the support.
Yeah, of course. We appreciate it. And you miss out on all Randy's outfits though.
Yeah, it is a shame.
Randy's
I already get all the
dresser.
I get all the mouthfeel that I can handle though.
There. Nice.
Well done.
But I wanted to talk about a couple of these most recent episodes that I thought that were really interesting with some of these trends and everything. And so you guys explored, this is just I think it might've been all four with nothing else, but I believe this, at least the last few were really great. Barber poles, unique wrappers, large gauges, and then lighter wrap cigars with Maduro binders, which I thought was really like a couple of those were really interesting. Like you hear about trends, the big gauge tends to come up, barber poles tend to come up. I'm smoking the Shaolin, which is of course a barber pole, so perfectly up. What did you guys find when I guess we'll dive into the barber pole one specifically and everything. What's your overall impression of the barber pole trend, so to speak? Are you a fan? Are you indifferent? Are you a naysayer? Guys, go, feel free to chime in here.
Okay, Randy pointed at me, so I'll go. It's interesting, and we talked about this a bit on the show. And what did I smoke, Randy? I smoked a Roma Craft. I think the original Craft series.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
That I don't know what you call that Vitola, like a trumpet shape or whatever. I don't remember the name of that.
Beggar's Banquet cocktail too is what you paired it with.
Right. So. That's a fun drink too. I that's one that we've gone. Randy has brought that one back up a couple of times. It's a beer-based cocktail, which we don't I don't normally get down with, but the Beggar's Banquet. And Randy, if you could look up that recipe, because I can't think of what it is off the top of my head. You're better at remembering that stuff than I am. But that's yeah. Yeah. So tell everybody what it is. What's the Beggar's Banquet?
So it's a bourbon cocktail with maple syrup. And that's the key to it. And then you use a Pilsner. We often use I always assume it was called Beggar's Banquet because they use Coors Banquet as the beer. But yeah, bourbon,
too perfect.
Lemon juice, maple syrup, and then like 6 ounces of, call it a Coors Banquet. Really refreshing. You've got that like richness coming not only from the bourbon but also the maple syrup, a little bit of brightness from the lemon, and makes for a really nice summer cocktail.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a long drink.
But anyways, yeah, but the Roma Craft that you're smoking, you have the full band of a different wrapper. They're about an inch into it.
Yeah, so it was more of like a double. Yeah, like more of a double wrapper, basically, as opposed to. But really, when you think about barber poles, they're all kind of like double wrapper cigars, right? My personal opinion on them is, it kind of depends on the origin, and I hate to even say it that way, but it seemed, and we talked about this a little bit, and I'm not going to pick on any specific company, but it seems like, when we go to the PCA trade show, which is coming up next week, and we've been doing this for a while. I've been going, this is probably my 10th one, maybe 11th. Bear, you've been doing this for a while too. It seems like whenever there's a new brand that pops up, they always have a bunch of like extravagant barber poles and like to show off these different, I don't know, different rolling abilities and things. And I'm not downplaying the rolling ability. Sometimes it just kind of, it feels too gimmicky. If it's a new brand that's like, they're pushing all these different barber poles on me and that's all that they have, it feels gimmicky. If it's a brand like Roma Craft or Black Label, like you guys were both talking about, when they're using it and maybe they've just kind of earned the I don't want to say earn the right to do it, because that sounds like super elitist. That's not what I mean. But it's just like they've earned the trust of the customer because they've been around for so long. They blend these phenomenal cigars, and when they do something like that, it's just like, oh wow, these guys are doing something super cool with this blend that I already know that I like, and they're adding these two different wrappers to it. This is going to be a super unique experience.
Right.
It's just sometimes it feels super super gimmicky, and sometimes it feels awesome. Like I'm super excited to try this cigar. I don't feel like there's a lot of middle ground when it comes to barber poles, at least for me. It's kind of an extreme reaction, and I hate to say it, but it all depends on the band that's on that particular cigar.
Well, what I like about Roma Craft and Oveja Negra, the parent company for Black Label and Blackworks and stuff, and you guys all smoked it. So like Jordan, I think, had the SNR from Blackworks. I think Eric was smoking the Black Irish. You did the Roma Craft series, and then Randy did the Neon Tiger. And I thought that it's really interesting, to your point, Robin. I was going to bring this up, so it's like you're reading my mind. Is what I really like about those two manufacturers when it comes to these types of cigars. I really understand where you're coming from, because to me, the barber pole is it's a dangerous thing. It can be really fantastic, or it can just be super gimmick, and I hate gimmicks. I absolutely hate them. So but specifically those two brands, what they've done is Skip and Mike have done this thing where the barber poles that they make are rare. They're limited. They're seasonal releases, like the Black Irish, the Sabertooth, etc., things like that. Or in the case of the Craft Series, it's a yearly annual release that's different every time. So they make it special. They're like, hey, like you said, it's something that they want to showcase their talents, and not just blending, but also in rolling. And James specifically has, the Oveja Negra fans out there can let me know if I'm completely off base with this, but he specifically does all of those kind of what he would call fun projects under Blackworks. And so Black Label really doesn't have any of those. Amelia doesn't have any of those. Dissident is owned by different people, so they have a little mixture of it. But as far as him specifically, he puts all that stuff under Blackworks. So I think it really works for those two companies specifically. Whereas you have, love Kurt Kendall, 724 brand, and I actually like the cigar brand, the Hustler. But like it's part of just his general portfolio, so it's kind of lumped in,
Right.
And so I think that's why people are probably overly cautious when they look at 724 or something like that, is they're like, oh, here are the normal 724s, and then here, Kurt decided to, get cute or something, which isn't the case. It's actually a great cigar, but I think that's a pretty valid point. I don't know. I'm not a big gauge smoker. I do like the occasional big gauge cigar. There are a few brands that I really kind of gravitate towards. With it, I was pretty impressed that you guys really kind of went after that. And so how did are either of you big gauge smokers, or do you guys kind of steer away from them, toward them, or indifferent towards them? Like Randy, where do you kind of stand on the big gauge and your normal smoking habit?
Yeah, no, for me, I consider a Perdomo Toro at 54 a pretty thick and heavy cigar. Typically, I would say the one real exception that I make is I'm a big fan of the Solomon Vitola, and so there are a handful of Solomons, the Alma Fuerte Solomon, specifically the Perdomo double-aged Solomons. I'm a big fan of those cigars, and those I think are as thick as 64 at their widest point. So for me, specifically, one of the reasons I like Solomon so much, and if I can just chime in just 2 seconds on the barber pole thing, when it is a gimmick, I have no interest in that. That doesn't drive my purchasing habits. But saying Solomon and saying barber pole, if it's a way that they can incorporate a transition, if they can incorporate an added layer of complexity by throwing, you know, an extra binder or an extra wrapper in there, and saying, you know, saber tooth is a great example where, you know, it's literally one additional leaf of tobacco that isn't in the regular version, just to add a little bit of a variance flavor wise. I'm all about it. You know, if you're actually, you know, accomplishing something to give a different flavor, I'm there for it. And for those Solomons where they start out so fat and narrow down, I feel like it drives more transition, to where like you're puffing along, you're getting familiar with the flavor, and then it changes. I'm there for that. Like keep me engaged. You know, I've got ADHD. I've got a 2.5 hour long smoke going here. Like keep bringing me back to the cigar and making me stop talking for a minute to enjoy the experience. I'm here for it. As far as like just big ring gauge, I've mostly been disappointed in the couple you know bigger ones that I've had, is I feel like people a lot of manufacturers blend more towards the mean, more towards like a lower intensity, because there's so much tobacco. And so I feel like they're souping it up with a bunch of secco leaves that don't, you know, contribute a ton of complexity and a ton to it. I missed the large ring gauge episode due to work on this last segment. I had lined up the Plasencia Alma Fuerte Colorado 6 to yeah, those actually, for me, both the Alma Fuerte and the Colorado version, those are exceptional cigars in my opinion. And for me, like, yeah, those are great vitolas in those blends. I haven't had a lot of other large ring gauge. I won't name anyone by name, but like they've been middle of the road, you know, in intensity and flavor delivery, in my opinion. So they really haven't like been something that I've been totally driven to. And then again, you know, when I first started getting into cigars and learning about the different vitolas, you know, a couple of the people that I was reading at the time, I'd say, you know, yes, there can be some variances. Yes, you're going to get a difference between the Lonsdale, the Robusto, and the Toro in the same blend. But for, you know, we do this as a luxury hobby. And so like feeling comfortable with the length of time that you're smoking, feeling comfortable with it in your fingers, feeling comfortable with it in your mouth, like to me are kind of the more crucial points of choosing your vitola. I am partial to Lonsdales for whatever reason. I do feel like that's usually a pretty good delivery vehicle of a vitola in general. But yeah, the large ring gauge is overall for me have never really delivered like that intensity and that robust flavor, you know, that I'm looking for the most part.
I thought you had an interesting pair, Rob. You went with the Nub Double Maduro, which is, you know, a short, fat cigar, and you went with the mint julep. We were talking about mint juleps a minute ago. So, like, how did that work out for you?
Yeah, it's funny. When we talked about the show, we initially talked about the larger ring gauge, because, I mean, when we talked about trends, and we did this in the on the beverage side as well. It's not always about we did beer trends. Actually, it was specifically on beer. It's not always about what's new, because sometimes what's old can become what's new, right? Like the not the rebirth of Connecticut's over the last handful of years, but you know, these styles that they can go out of fashion and then come back into fashion. They become a trend, like the 90s nowadays, or everybody's wearing neon and bongo jeans, and it's where it's like I'm back in high school again. It's weird. But to me, when I think of 60 ring gauge, the one that started it all for me was the Nub. I mean, that was the whole idea behind that cigar was, and I think this was even their marketing not ploy, that's not a right term. Even this was their marketing behind it, was strategy. Thank you. We're condensing the cigar into this 4 inches by 60, and we're getting rid of the beginning and the end, which aren't that great. We're just going to focus on the middle of the cigar. So you're just getting the best part of the cigar, is I think kind of the way that they put it. And so I always thought of nub as the kind of the impetus behind this larger ring gauge. And I don't know if they were the first, but that's the one that sticks out in my mind. And the nub double Maduro was always one that I liked. I remember the nub Cameroon being pretty good too back in the day.
Was.
But I thought of the nub double Maduro as just chocolate on chocolate on chocolate. To me, that's the way that I remember that cigar. And I wanted to go with something that was going to pair well with that. And mint goes really, really well with chocolate. So I was going for kind of like a peppermint patty type situation. I think the nub that I had was past its prime. It was, you'll find that some cigars in my humidor just can be 8, 9, 10, 11 years old because they just kind of end up being that old. I don't know why, it just happens. But the cigar had lost some of its punch by then, but it still delivered some of that chocolate. It wasn't quite as heavy as I remember it being, but there was some chocolate there, but paired really nicely with the bourbon, of course, in the mint julep, but the mint as well, giving me that little bit of that peppermint patty type of situation, or thin mint, if you want to go with your Girl Scout cookies. And actually, if you go with the thin Oreos with mint, the thin mint Oreos, they've got just a little bit of, not a whole lot of the stuff in the middle, and it's mint flavor. That's delicious. But anyway, that's what I was going for with that pairing. It worked out pretty well. It probably would have worked out better if I was smoking a newer version of the cigar. The one that I had was pretty old. But to Randy's point about just 60 ring gauges in general, it's funny, man. I like to say that whenever like the audience for your show and for our shows and the folks that we spend our time with, we're like the 1% of cigar smokers. That, not saying that makes us better than anybody, but it's like we're focused on like the top of the latest stuff. Like what's new. If the cigar is 6 months old, it's old already.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I've already had that. I want something new.
It's like we work in the tech industry, like.
Yeah, right. And frankly, we're kind of insufferable. It's just, we always want something that's new. And if it's old, then it's old, it's passé. I'm not really interested in that. But so I don't think the folks who really watch our shows or watch your show are really smoking those 60 ring gauges. At least nobody says they are, but somebody's lying, because there's people are buying these cigars. Everybody's making 60 ring gauges. There's a couple, like the one that sticks out in my mind that I think is one of the best delivery sizes of that particular blend is the Underground Shade, the 6x60. I think that delivers really nice flavor. Somebody on the show, I can't remember, one of the studio audience in the show smoked that cigar, and I thought, damn, that would have been a good one to smoke, because that's a really good cigar in that size. I think that might be the best expression of that particular cigar in that size. But it's a comfort level thing for me. I feel like it's just, I don't like holding it. It's too big. I don't like it. It doesn't sit well when I'm smoking it. I feel like the flavors tend to get muddled. I like Randy says, I've been a Lonsdale smoker for forever and a day. If you're making a cigar and you have it in a Lonsdale, that's the size I want to try. Although the Toro probably is the best size to try, because I imagine most people blend to the Toro and then tweak from there. But I'm not a blender, so I don't really know. But yeah, that larger size, it just doesn't really sit with me. And I think that was part of the reason that we wanted to do it, take ourselves out of our comfort zone. And maybe push the audience a little bit, because we have a kind of a core following on the show, and I think, Randy, we call them the oddballs, the Odyssey oddballs, which is we just came up with that name like kind of like a highball as a cocktail, so they're the oddballs. There you go. But it's great because they all chime in with their pairings, and they're really honest about the flavors that they're experiencing, and whether it's a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That's the way we kind of judge the pairings on our show. And that was one of the reasons that we did that, was just kind of take ourselves out of our comfort zone. Obviously, Absolutely. People are buying these things. Like I think they just announced another one, like another lunatic that's even bigger than the previous lunatic.
10 by 100.
Yeah,
10 by 100.
It still is a trend. I mean, we've talked about it since they first came out. It's like, oh, it's a fad. Like IPAs, everybody said, oh, IPAs are a fad. No, they're everywhere now. And now you got double, triple, quadruple IPAs,
or a gimmick at that. And that's one of the things. And Terrence Riley's really like informed me how well their Lunatic 8x80 sells, and how he's talked to consumers that jump on an 8x80 on the daily. And I don't
How
get
long
it.
does it take to smoke an 8x80? That's a 2.5 hour cigar, at least, right?
You would
minimum.
think.
Well, the
Yeah.
La Flor Dominicana Digger, which I forgot the length of it. It's a 60 gauge cigar, or the 70 gauge El Granu that they had. Both of those took me a long ass time. I remember I almost did an entire round of golf with the Digger once.
And that's the place that I can see them. That's the one spot that I can see them working is, or if you like, or I think I mentioned this during the show, you're barbecuing, you're out the grill and you got people coming over and you want to have a cigar, but you're not too focused on it. You don't really have to futz with it too much. It's going to stay lit and you're going to be pretty good for the time that you're grilling, unless you're
Majority of the afternoon.
yeah, unless you're making
Yeah.
a brisket or something. That's a different set of scenarios
There you-
there, because then we got to focus, Randy. We got to focus on the brisket. We
That's
don't.
right.
That's not a background situation. We're
That's
100%
fully
focused.
involved. That's fully involved. Yeah.
And Randy, if you're looking, you ain't cooking. You know what I mean?
I think that's my problem with the 60 gauge, if I'm being honest. Like, I know my partner Coop loves them. He loves big gauge cigars, and I'm more of the Lancero guy myself too. But I think that's why I have a problem with the 60 gauge. I don't mind smoking bigger gauge cigars. There are some I really enjoy. Rob, I know you're a big Tatuaje fan. The Surrogates Animal Cracker is probably one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. The La Flor Dominicana DL700 Maduro, one of my all-time favorites. I absolutely will absolutely smoke a larger gauge cigar. But to your point, Rob, I think that's my problem with it, is that a lot of them, it's kind of my opinion towards torpedoes back in the day, is people just kind of mailed it in because it was really popular. Torpedoes were the trend when I first got into smoking, when I was like 18 years old, and everyone was doing it. I was like, God, this is terrible. I don't like the way these smoke and everything. But now, like I'll smoke a Torpedo or Perfecto or Figurado or something like that, and there's some people that do it really well. But yeah, I think the 60 gauge, the bigger gauge, a lot of ones kind of, it's just kind of the blend is kind of mailed in. It's kind of, the flavors are really muddled, like you said, and it just doesn't work. I'd rather smoke that blend, even if it's not even a problem with the blend, but I'd rather smoke it smaller. And
yeah, I feel like sorry, Randy. I feel like some blenders, and I won't speak for anybody because I'm not the guy making the cigars, but I feel like some places, some brands, they blend to a 60, and like when they make that cigar, they blend specifically.
Korea does that, yeah,
and they do it well, and those are good cigars. I feel like some companies have a cigar that they really like, and they're like, oh shit, we better make a 60, and it tastes that way. It tastes like an afterthought.
Yeah.
Which is, and I don't, it's not fair to label all of them that way. And I'm not going to name any specific ones, but like I said, with the Undercrown Shade, that comes out in there's like 18 sizes in that cigar. I mean, you can get it in any size that you want. Any size the cigar's ever been made, you can get the Undercrown Shade. And it's a really good cigar, but that 60 is really good. Like, I feel like that was, and I'm not saying that, I'm not picking on anybody specific, but it's just, sometimes it feels like, oh crap, we better make a 60 because marketing says we need to have one.
All I'm going to do is mirror what Rob just said, but I love that you brought up animal crackers. I wish I thought to mention that earlier. That was probably the first big ring gauge cigar that I was like, wow. Yeah. I regularly go to that cigar. I gave one yesterday during a round of golf to a friend because he's a big Tatuaje fan, and I wanted him to try that because I think so highly of it. And I couldn't agree more with Rob. It comes down to, did you try to make the best 60 you possibly could, or did you try and take the blend that you actually originally blended towards Robusto or a Toro and realize, hey, we better come up with a strategy to make a big ring gauge version of it, and those just don't hit the spot the same way that someone goes into. I love the Circuits line, right? Every Vitola has its own name and owns kind of sub brand within it, right? That's what Animal Crackers is. Well, this is our big flavorful son of a gun, and they knocked it out of the park. I think those Plasencias that I mentioned, those Alma Fuertes, are almost an exception of just holy shit, they blended the crap out of this for every Vitola that they made. It really hits. It's hard to find a line of cigars where where every Vitola can impress at the same level as whichever your preference is.
Yeah.
So yeah, that animal crackers is fire, man.
Well, that to your point about that, one of my I thought this was interesting conversation because I think one of my favorite, like most underrated 60 gauge cigars is the San Cristobal Revelation 6x60, which they call the Odyssey. So there's a
Well, that would have been a good one.
Hold on, I gotta make a note. Where'd my pen go? Wait, the San Cristobal.
Yeah, Randy, write that down.
So San Cristobal is a brand. They have a line called Revelation. So they have several sizes in that. The Prophet's like the Robusto, which is probably my go-to. But it absolutely just crushes in the 60x6, which they call the Odyssey.
It's a great name for a big cigar like that.
San Cristobal Revelation.
But you're setting up the expectation
Odyssey.
that as I'm smoking through the cigar, you're going to take me through. Like I'm going on a journey here. So it's going to be, I'm not only going to start, like it's my first puff and my 40th puff aren't going to taste the same.
They have a big,
you got to back that up.
They have a bigger one that's 64 gauge. They call it the Leviathan. So, but yeah, it's the 61 that hits. It's the Odyssey for me that I really enjoy.
To track that down.
But yeah, some really great shows. There's like I really liked the unique wrappers, and you guys smoked a bunch of Aladino, the Ecuadorian Cameroon that they used. And the Maduro binders, which you guys were, a lot of Burles were being smoked that night. So some really, really interesting episodes. I thought that some, honestly, gentlemen, I think it was some of your, best work. And just because I think it was a deep dive into the cigar nerddom, where you guys kind of nerd out typically on the pairing side of it. You smoke great cigars, but you kind of nerd out on the pairing, which is what I really like about Flavor Odyssey. You guys bring this whole new different side of it with your passion with cigars. Like the cigar kind of takes the back seat typically in my mind. It's not done intentionally though. Like you guys are cigar nerds and you guys love cigars, and I think that's why it works so well, because you guys bring a nerd level from a completely different perspective and bring it into it. So I really enjoyed it. But I thought this was some of your best work because you guys really drove into the cigar piece, but true to form and true to brand, you didn't sleep on the pairing side of it either, which I thought was fantastic.
I super appreciate hearing you say it like that. And it's interesting because if you're backstage with Rob and I, as we planned this stuff, I believe, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that we both are of the thinking that the best pairings that we do on the show elevate the cigar, and the cigar is kind of the centerpiece of what we do. I feel like maybe we speak more to the libation element of the pairing because I think we have an assumption that a lot of our audience is very familiar with the cigar and they need less kind of explanation and conversation behind the cigar, where we're trying to talk about that thing that you already know about. We want to bring, we both work in the alcoholic beverage industry, and so we feel like we do have a little more expertise to bring to the table from that libation side and say, hey, how this cocktail or this wine or this beer can really amplify that experience that you're already having with these cigars. So I super appreciate you hearing you say that. But to your point on this last segment, that cigar trends was the theme of the segment. We really did have our drinks be that kind of secondary element where we really wanted to talk about what that flavor was. And hearing you say it, we probably should have worked harder to have more variance in what we were smoking. A lot of times Rob and I like to smoke or drink the same thing because it is a competitive show that like it's him versus me. And so the audience does vote on who paired it best. But this was really for me, and obviously, Rob has mentioned it, you both have been in the industry far longer than I have. And so for me, I am still very much, I would say, in my experimental and learning process as a cigar smoker and as a cigar professional, whatever it is you want to say. And so for me, like I really pay a lot of attention to these nuances within the cigar industry that that I haven't necessarily totally fleshed out my own thoughts on. You know, I experimented a ton flavor wise. You know, I think I've smoked, you know, I think I've smoked 2 cigars in my life with Candela, and they were both barber poles. I don't think I'll be, you know, trying to change that anytime soon. But the whole, the most recent episode where we did the foreign origins or the far from terroir, where you're smoking a Corojo grown somewhere that's much less known about, where you're smoking a broadleaf that we don't talk as much about.
Grown in Honduras, yeah. Jordan had the double
Right.
broadleaf, yeah.
Right, exactly, and of course I found that cigar for you, Rob, the day after the show. But you know, really like understanding what flavors are coming from that varietal, like genetic composition of the varietal of tobacco versus what's coming from the soil in Connecticut, you know, that's driving a lot of that earthiness from the broadleaf. Like I felt like what we found was broadleaf stays earthy regardless, but you know, taking it to Nicaragua changes it significantly. You know, one of the ones that I had intended to smoke was the Casa Favilli Nicaraguan broadleaf, where I felt like it does not have that same level of earthiness that the Honduran and the Connecticut you know, terroir adds or allows to come out and express itself in the varietal. So really interesting, you know. And again, we call it an Odyssey because you know, Rob's done this a lot longer than I have, as I said, but we both, I think, consider ourselves as students of this. We're both interested in what cigar blenders are going to bring to the table next, and we're excited about, you know, nuances and new flavors and differences that might be out there with working with some of the same components that we've had available to us for, you know, tens and tens of years so far, but can still give a little bit of a new, you know, look to and flavor to in general.
Yeah, Randy, you kind of crushed that. I do want to thank Bear for the kudos. I think we came up with this idea for beer because, like Randy, both Randy and I have a background in beer. Yours, in that case, Randy's background is much more in depth than mine. But I think that's one of the reasons that I feel like our show is successful, is we have different strengths, and we've both got a lot of experience in a bunch of different things. So it does make it fun. But digging into some of these trends, I think was definitely a lot of fun. But to me, it's funny because Eric is Eric Gatormson with the Cigar Dojo. He kind of he peppers Randy and I with questions sometimes, which is fun. I mean, Randy and I are the hosts of the show, and Eric and Jordan are you know, along for the ride. But Eric will chime in with some questions here and there, and he's always good to ask when we get to the end of a segment. So we do our show in 4 episode segments, and we usually alternate between what the common thread will be. So this one was a little bit unique because we were focusing on trends, so we weren't necessarily all smoking the same thing. But usually we'll focus on a particular cigar for whatever reason, and Randy and I are smoking the same thing, and we'll pick different beverages to pair with it. Or we're focusing on the same cocktail, for example, and trying to find the best cigar to pair with it. So we'll always have one constant, although these episodes were a little bit different. But focusing on or getting to the end of that segment, Eric asked both Randy and I, like, what do you think you learned from this? Because, you know, we are always trying to learn from what we're doing. And yeah, a lot of the times it's a competition show, and we do that. Randy and I both want to win. So we tend to give both of our pairings a thumbs up, and we plan it that way because I want to beat him. He wants to beat me, and it's fun. It's kind of like a chopped show kind of situation, that kind of thing. But with this, it was a little bit different. And then at the end, you know, Eric says, you know, what do you feel like you learned the most? And to me, I felt like the one aspect of all these different shows is that last one that we did. It's, you know, Far From Terroirs, taking these leaves that we know, these wrapper leaves that we know, and growing them in different regions and finding new flavors and new ways to express that particular tobacco. And to me, that feels like that's the future of the industry. Is, I mean, how do we continue to innovate and come up with new things, unless we're willing to take those chances. And I say we, I'm talking about the farmers they're dedicating this land that is, precious, and this growing season, which is even more precious, to a particular, like, hey, let's try this. That takes a lot of guts to say, hey, let's take a Connecticut broadleaf seed and let's grow it in Jalapa, see what happens. I mean, for us, from where we're sitting, it's really cool to say, yeah, I'd love to see what happens, but they're putting their money where their mouth is. And if it doesn't work, that's a lost season, and not a lot of places can afford that. So it's easy for me to say that I feel like that's the future of the industry, because that's what gets me excited as a consumer. Like, yeah, you grew a San Andreas wrapper in, I don't know, Ecuador or something. Yeah, in Brazil. Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the ones. That was one of the questions at the end. Like, what were some that you would love to see? Like, you had the guts to do that, and then wrap a cigar with it. Like, I would love to experience that. So that was really exciting. It was a lot of fun to talk about that. That was probably my favorite episode of the segment. But anyway, that one was really a lot of fun to just kind of nerd out on those different things. And the segment before, when we were talking about beer, I mean, that's equally fun for Randy and I to kind of nerd out on some of these different styles. And one of the styles that we talked about was just American Stout, which is, I mean, that's not new. There's nothing new about American Stout, but we're kind of in the beer industry, we call it like hop fatigue, right? Everybody wants to, there's so much hops, everything, all these triple IPAs and all this, but let's bring it back. And there's, beer drinkers are thirsty for something that's a little bit different. I was going to say hungry. That didn't work there. They're thirsty for something that's a little bit different, and to change things up on their palate. So it's nice to see a lot of breweries, and I'm getting off topic here, but it is fun to see breweries coming up with, we're gonna go back to our roots. We're gonna make a stout. We're gonna make a Belgian blonde, or some different styles that are classic, but make them trendy again. So it's just fun to see the cyclical nature of it. And that's in cigars, it's in wine, that's in beer, it's in all these different industries. So it is fun to dig through all that stuff.
This is a perfect time to transition to our charity segment, because you talk about how certain things have a reputation for themselves. So like when you branch out like you guys did, you found some of the things, like particularly I think it's real. I mean, I wouldn't say like it's an absolute, but I would say that a lot of people who really enjoy what you guys have been smoking tonight, like the Don Carlos Cameroon, right? Fuente Cameroon, those products, and then they simultaneously can enjoy the Aladino Cameroon, which is Cameroon that's not grown in the same country, by the way. It's not even close. And they still really enjoy it. I think is something that's, one, I think it's a credit to both those manufacturers for being able to, pull the very best out of those wrappers, but two, I think it's all about misconceptions sometimes too. Like, Randy and the Candela thing, I think the Green Hornet's a great example of this on Black Works and stuff. A lot of people gave James shit because the little bit of candela that he has on the tip of the cigar, he would talk about how you can get the notes of it, and it goes with it, because that's a very bold blend, and that grassy element on just the tip of the head of the cigar is, I think, is a great counterbalance. We're talking about contrasting flavors and stuff, but a lot of people won't touch candela, right, man? It's that reputation, like you said. I mean, Randy at least tries it because I think he tries everything, but like it's one of those things about misconceptions, which, Randy, I'll pivot to you on this. This is our charity segment. We do this every week where we feature nonprofits and charities that are spotlighted by our guests, and I had you guys pick one apiece, and you went with Bad Rap, which is a fantastic organization, and so I thought I'd give you the floor to talk about it, and I'll post it in the chat while we're chatting.
Yeah, well, let me start by giving you credit that you have this philanthropic element in your show, and that you challenge your guests to pick a nonprofit in general, because nonprofits in our country do so much for important things that are going on, and again, this is one that I chose that isn't necessarily important to everybody. I know plenty of people that have no interest in hearing how loving my pit bulls are with my 3-year-old. But I've had an opportunity through my career, working in the beer industry, for a festival to take place the way that we're used to them taking place. They almost always 97% of the time need to be connected to a 501c3 nonprofit organization to be able to host festivals. And so I had an opportunity to work with a handful, and a few years back, working with the Brewing Network to host our Winterfest event. We partnered with Bad Rap, and this is a 10-year-old festival that I've been part of. And at the time, they had gained national notoriety because of the Mike Vick situation and dogfighting. And this organization took most of those dogs that had been abused, had been raised with the wrong intentions in their life, and they were able to rehabilitate them and get them back to a place where they could be good pets, good friends to mankind again, and find loving homes for them. And so Bad Rap Kennels works with problematic pit bulls. They work with they create education for people that believe that pit bulls are by nature a violent or aggressive animal. I myself have owned 5 pit bulls in my life, and every one of them have been the softest, caring, most loving dogs, as much as every Labrador I've ever owned in my life as well. So Bad Rap does great work educating people about the breed and caring for them, and making sure that the ones that have gone a little bit wayward have a place to come back and be rehabilitated, and find people that know how to work with dogs and have some patience. So yeah, thank you for focusing on your guests, what matters to them. Like I said, I understand not everybody has a big place in their heart for pit bulls the way I do, but I can tell you, the way mine laid his paw on my newborn son, and I knew he wanted to protect him more than anything, means a lot to me. So appreciate it.
That's awesome, Randy. I agree with your sentiment, man. I think that dogs in general, but yeah, particularly pit bulls, have this reputation that they can be trained or bred to be mean and violent even, and stuff like that. And it all boils down to the people. It's not just
100%.
it's not just nature, it is nurture. And my dog is by my feet. She always is every show. And she follows me everywhere. And I'm really proud of her, actually, because with all the fireworks going off, usually she's during shows when the fireworks are going off, she's actually by the door, but now she's back where she wants to be, on her bed that sits next to me when I do these shows. So it's it's a great organization. I would love the choice and everything. And I love that you aren't just advocating for it, but you're also kind of an ambassador and a believer in it too, which is terrific. And that kind of pivots great over to Rob's. I think Rob, this is a fantastic organization so that you chose, which is the Casa of Contra Costa. I was going to invert those words. I knew I was going to do it. Casa of Contra Costa County, which is a wonderful organization that also works with orphans, just of the human kind rather than the dog kind. So the system, quote, I'm using little quote fingers for people who are listening later. The system, where the foster care system that we have in this country is incredibly flawed. And it's organizations like this one, Robin, I think this is why you chose it, that just they breathe new life into it, and really kind of take up the cause a little bit more, and are able to do some really great things. So talk about why you selected this, and a little bit more about it. And I know I didn't do it justice in that brief description. So
no, that was great. Casa is, I think they're nationwide. But the one specifically that I was focused on is Contra Costa County. That's the county that I live in. And CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. And the idea is that it's it's people like I'm in the process, and I have been, God, for over a year, in the process of training to become a CASA myself. It's interesting because it's I'm it's a high priority for me, but the training process is pretty stringent. Like it's pretty tough, and it should be, because you're being given access to these children that they need a positive influence in their life, and someone to kind of stand up for them, so to speak, to be an advocate for them. And basically, it's you're working with children, as you said, that are in the system, foster children. And there's, for every triumphant story of a foster child that was taken in, and the family adopts them, and everything is great, there's 1,000 stories that are the exact opposite, unfortunately. And being the job of someone that is a CASA, that is a court appointed special advocate for these children, is you basically you have one child that you work with. You spend some time with them, just taking them you get to do the fun stuff. You take them to the movies, to the park, to the beach, and you hang out with them, and you talk to them about just life and what's going on, and helping them kind of cope with some of the things that they're going through. But it's also, I mean, the cost, it's a pretty big deal. I mean, you're going to court appointments, and you're observing the way that their foster family is treating them, and if they need something. I mean, you're kind of, I don't want to say their mouthpiece, it's not the right term, but you're their champion to say, hey, maybe they need a little more of this, or hey, this family's great, and they're treating them, that they're getting awesome treatment, that kind of thing. But I just think it's one of those things. I hadn't really thought of it really before. I didn't know much about it, but my wife had set up. They do an intro meeting. They do these like once a month, and because they're always trying to find new people to new CASA members. And I sat in on the meeting, and it was a virtual thing, and they're talking about the program, and I'm watching it, and I'm listening to what they're saying, and listening to some of these people. And the thing that really got me, and it was emotional, really. I hadn't even anticipated this, but they were saying that if you do decide to become a CASA, if you're a woman, you get to choose. You can choose if you want to have a boy or a girl that you're working with. But if you're a man, then you have to work with a boy. And it's not for like nefarious reasons, not for negative reasons. It's because most of these boys don't have a positive male influence in their life.
Yeah.
And that to me was something, it's like, wow, like that was when I really felt like this is something that I need to do. And I'm still in the process of doing it. It's not something that you take on lightly. I mean, you're with the idea is they pair you with this child, and you're with them until they find their forever home. Maybe they get adopted by the foster family that they're with, or they get rehomed with their original parents, which is always the goal. But you're there with them through that whole journey, and you work with one child at a time. It's not something where you've got 5 or 6 different kids that you're working with. I mean, you're that person's CASA. And some of the stats, and I don't know them off the top of my head, but they were pretty impressive when it comes to just high school graduation. The high school graduation rate of a child that was in the foster system compared to one that has a CASA was like, I don't know, 30% to like 90%. I could be making those numbers up. Don't take that for fact. You can check out their website, but the numbers were pretty staggering. Just having that positive influence, and it's somebody that you hang out with them a couple of times a week, and I mean, really, that's what you're doing. You're hanging out with them, and you get to know them, and they have just that kind of stable influence in their life. And they do a lot of other things too. And there's ways that you can donate without becoming CASA, because it's not for everybody. Not everybody has the time to do it. For the most part, when I was going through my initial meetings, they were surprised that I was interested in doing it, because I have a full-time job. Usually it's people that are retired because they have more time. But it's something that I'm passionate about. Because, man, just to think that, like, I was lucky I had my dad at home. I mean, it wasn't always roses, but he was there. And I mean, it's not to make it about me, but if there's, and my wife and I, we don't have kids, so if there's a way that that I can, be a positive influence in somebody's life, like I would love to do that. So it's something that's really close to the heart. Um, and I'm glad that you're giving us an opportunity to shine a light on it.
It's a beautiful organization, Robin. Good luck with that. Like you said, it's not something you've taken lightly, and it's a huge responsibility, and it's also very difficult. So, bravo to you, and good luck to you at the same time as you kind of work your way through it. And just yeah, bravo, man, fantastic, great organizations, guys. Thank you so much for bringing these both to the table tonight. So, you know, not to get too cheesy, speaking of dad jokes. So speaking of tables, so we're talking about to our next segment, which is always brought to you by Pestaña Cigars. Everybody Eats, sponsored by Pestaña Cigars. If you always make sure that your servant's towel is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Pestaña Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Pestaña, everybody eats. So, gentlemen, I thought this would be a fun question. There's 3 variations of the questions in the everybody eats segment that I thought that would be really perfect for you two, because I know you guys pride yourselves on, Randy in particular prides himself on cooking, but I know you guys like to, to make special things and do things. And so I thought this would be the question that I would ask for this episode, which is, what is the favorite dish that you like to make or share with other people?
Randy,
so you don't have to make it, but share it. But you can also share it too, Rob. So
Randy, you might have a lot of things to choose from. I've really only got one, so I'll go first and give you time to think about what it is that you want to do. There's not a lot of things that I make really well outside of cocktails. I make a good cocktail, but that's not really what we're talking about here. I fell in love with the show Ted Lasso. And if I don't know if you guys have watched it, I think it's just a fantastic show. It's super heartwarming, and I just love it. I've watched the series like 3 or 4 times. And if you've watched the show, if you don't, or whatever, you may know, at the beginning he brings he calls it biscuits with the boss, where he brings his boss some shortbread cookies. And so I have since, for whatever reason, since that episode, I've decided that I want to learn to make. And I guess we watch a lot of British baking show too, maybe, so that's part of it. But baking is tough, man. But I'm not a cook. My wife can go into the cabinet and find 5 different things. She's like MacGyver, and she can make a great meal. I can follow a recipe, but I can't just make it up. So I've been toying around with shortbread cookies, and I do have a little bit of a Scottish background, so I always had shortbread around when I was a kid. So it's something that resonates with me there. So that's shortbread. I think is my deal. I'm still perfecting the recipe, but I've made ironically, the first batch that I made was the best, and I haven't been able to recapture it since. But that's one thing that I like to make and share with people.
Nice. Oh, awesome.
All right. Well, I'll tell you for sharing, and it's funny, just my personality, I love being around people. I love performing. And so like my favorite things to make actually are the types of things that can be built up into large, for the masses type servings. And so I'm a big chili guy. I start with I should have thought about this. I'm on the show with a Texan. I make chili with beans. So I have to clarify.
Not chili, but I bet it's delicious.
It's still delicious. Yeah, I promise. Kidney beans add a certain sweetness to all the savory characteristics. But I start with a mole base. I'm a huge pork shoulder or pork butt fan, as that's something that can, you can smoke 5 or 6 of those. You can make I make Mexican street tacos. I can make sliders. I can make medallions of the money muscle that melt in your mouth and drive people crazy. But I'll go with my most recent. I'm actually preparing for a local competition. Like I said, I'm here in Santa Cruz, California, and there's a an annual clam chowder cook-off, and so I cook clam chowder to New England style. The heavy cream base, but what's been really fun for me is not only the ingredients and playing with the levels of bacon, and I've taken it all the way to the point where it's like really should just be called bacon chowder with some clams in it. And then I've dialed that back, and the way I saute my onions ahead of time to really get that caramel sweetness out of the onions. But
thank you for saying
that's it. Oh yeah, I'm a caramel fan, man. But I'll tell you, that's a fun dish just because there's a lot of different ways you can go with the ingredients. I've messed with different white wines, I've messed with different clam bases, I've messed with fresh clams, day old from canned clams. And for me, like one of the biggest things for that is like technique has as much to do with that dish as the ingredients, and like the way you prepare the bacon, the way you prepare the onions, the way you prepare each of the ingredients, and how you bring them together and when you bring them together is something that I really like to geek out on. And you can make an 8-gallon pot of it at a time and take it to a picnic or whatever in the cooler months, and have everybody go crazy over it. So yeah, clam chowder is a big one for me right now specifically.
Wow. Randy, I feel like I know you pretty well. I never would have guessed clam chowder, bro. You could have given me like 100 guesses. I thought you would have gone beef jerky because your beef jerky is freaking legendary. But yeah, I need to try some of this clam chowder because I don't know if you know this about me. I'm a bit of a chowder connoisseur.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I did not know that about you.
If you need an unbiased, and I'll tell you how I really feel.
Oh yeah.
You need an unbiased juror. Just let me know.
I think I've got my recipe dialed. I'm ready for this competition. And it's one of those funny things that, like, my wife knows if we go on a trip, I'm looking up the local barbecue houses. I'm looking for, if I'm at a restaurant and there's chili on the menu, even if I'm going to order something else, I still at least order a cup of clam of the chili, because I always want to try everyone's chili. And it was one of those things that, like, my wife realized anytime we're near the water, if I'm in San Francisco, Santa Cruz, Monterey, I'm always ordering the clam chowder. We're right on the ocean where we live here on the Pacific, and so like we have the opportunity to get fresh clams pretty regularly. And so my wife had pointed out one night, like, I'd ordered a clam chowder at a restaurant. She says, there's no dish that you order more frequently that I've never seen you make before, and that's clam chowder. And I kind of took that as a personal challenge. I kid you not, 2 weeks later I found out about this annual clam chowder cook-off, and I was like, oh, it was meant to be. I need to become a master of clam chowder. So yeah, you've got a mason jar of clam chowder coming at you here soon.
Yeah, absolutely. That story is absolutely perfect. Because I know you, I know your wife, and I can see that conversation, and I totally know what your reaction was. You absolutely know what your reaction was. That's awesome.
The next day I was reading on what the best clams you could buy on the Pacific were.
Right.
Yeah, all Randy's wife to get him to motivate him to do anything is just like challenge him a little bit. It's like, God, it'd be really great to get some really, nachos. Too bad you don't make good nachos, Randy.
Yeah, exactly.
See, that's okay. This is so funny because I'm going to pull this back to Bo Jackson because I'm kind of obsessed with him right now. His baseball coach, his last year at Auburn, he said, he was really hard to coach because Bo he didn't want to work out. He didn't really want to go to practice. Like, he always wanted to play the game, and he was just so good at everything. Like, he didn't really have to try. It just kind of happened. And so he said, if I ever wanted Bo to work on something, he said, what I would do is, like, I'd sit him down and I'd say, it's like, I don't know if you're going to be able to do this. And I probably shouldn't even say this, but guys that like are at your level that are pros, they do X, Y, and Z. And I mean, if you want to try it, that's fine. I doubt you're going to be able to do it, but just letting you know, this is kind of what they do. And he's like, that's how I coached him. And I think that's exactly how we should coach Randy.
Yeah.
100%.
Do that. Just tell Randy.
I doubt you'll be able to do it, but most people, like, if they're professional, they show up on time.
Yeah.
So
seriously.
I mean, I don't know. You can give it a try.
Guy with your expertise surely could make X, but why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, God, I would have been loved to be a fly on the wall for that exchange. That would have been fantastic.
Yeah, right.
But
Yeah,
good stuff, man. Really excited to maybe I can get a mason jar too, because I love me some clam chowder.
I was thinking in my mind I was going to surprise you with it, but absolutely, I'm absolutely mailing you a mason jar.
I mean,
You
PCA
know what?
is
I'm going
only
to
a
send you
week
some
away.
chili too,
Just saying.
and like I'm not going to ask you to like show preference and say, oh, this is the better version, but just do what I do and concede. There's two different. It's two different dishes.
Two different dishes.
Yeah, they can live in parallel from each other. They don't have to be in competition. Mine doesn't have to be the wrong thing because it has beans. Just it's a different dish, and take it with an open mind. I'd love to hear your feedback.
Absolutely. I'm in it. I'm in it. So gentlemen, the last couple of segments that we have here tonight, wanted to talk a little. We can't not talk about this because we're going to be heading out to Vegas later this week for the annual PCA trade show. Some big changes coming. So we're going out in July. It is July already. If we can't believe it's 2023 and it's July already, it's crazy. But it is July. We're going to be heading out to Vegas for the annual PCA trade show. And some things that are kind of exciting, but I wanted to kind of hit on a hot button, what I felt was a button topic that no one's been really talking about. With the change to the PCA, with it now going to be moved to March, okay? And I'm not going to ask the cliche question of like, what, if you're excited about it moving or not, that's kind of been talked about on a bunch of arenas and stuff. My question to you guys is, does that make this year's trade show, with an upcoming trade show, a little bit more than 6 months away after it, does that make this year's trade show in July a lame duck show?
Rob.
Well,
this is your 11th.
I was muted because my wife brought me out another round of mojitos here, and what I like to do with my mojitos, Randy, I like to top it with topo. So I was cracking open a new Topo Chico, and I didn't want to make too much noise, so that's why I was muted there. That's a fantastic question, and I picked up what you were getting at about halfway through, and I thought, holy shit, I haven't thought about it in these terms. How would I approach this? And I've worked on the brand side of the industry, from marketing with Mombacho. May they rest, unfortunately. But they're still alive, but the company's no longer with us. God, how would I approach this? That's a really good question. And I wonder if there was, so when was that announced? That was announced a couple months ago.
Yeah, about 6 weeks ago or so. Yeah.
Okay. That was announced to the public a couple months ago. And I wonder if this was something that's obviously this has been in the works for a while. And I wonder if, some of the industry folks and the manufacturers had more of a heads up on this. And I hope that they did, because if I were doing that, I would want that. Man, that's a really good question. I feel like I'm building up to an answer, but I really just don't think I have one. Does it make it a lame duck show? What I wonder is, everybody's been preparing for this particular show. You build your year around July or August or whenever it's been. And now all of a sudden you have to build your year around March, which ultimately in the long term is fine. I wonder if it makes next year's show more of a lame duck as opposed to this year's, because I mean, we've all, I'm speaking as the industry, like I'm doing that. We've all been planning for this. So we've been ready for that. It's because you build your new releases around this stuff. And this is when, you're making your hay, you're selling a lot of cigars, especially for smaller companies. Have they really prepared to have something turn around quick enough to have it in March of next year? I don't know, but they're definitely prepared to have something now. So I wonder if that makes, I don't know if I'm answering your question with a question, but to me, I would see it as more of next year's show being the lame duck.
No, it's a fair point. I have a specific comment to that. But I wanted to give Randy the chance to answer.
Sure. I think that because of the world that we've been in for the last 3 years, I think that they're in a really good place, because I feel like 2019 was really the year that TPE made real dust and said, you know, we're going to go head to head. We're going to like provide a legitimate platform for these cigar companies. And for a short time, we talked about, could this other show actually usurp the great and mighty annual, IPCPR, PCA show. And to Rob's point, I think we've known for some time that they were going to look to make a move. For those that don't know, in production, when you book these venues years in advance, so they had a contract through this year for this time period. That there was this is literally the first opportunity that the PCA could have made a move. You know, they were contractually obliged to stay into this July standpoint. But I think,
and they couldn't talk about it too. Like, this has been on the moves.
That's a good point.
They couldn't talk about it too because of contracts. That's the thing. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But one of the things that we talked about when TPE, the Tobacco Plus Expo, started kind of making a little bit of hay and trying to engage the premium cigar industry at a higher level. We talked about how the timing actually works better for the year. You know, when we go into PCA in July, most of these cigars that you're going to be hearing about over the next few weeks aren't going to be on brick and mortar shelves until September, October. And so you're getting your actual releases in the fourth quarter, because for those of you watching or listening, don't understand, this is a private show. The public is not invited. This is where retailers come and they make their annual orders. And so this is like a pre-order kind of period in the industry where after they get their initial orders, that informs how much of the tobacco they should actually buy, how many cigars they should roll, how many boxes they need to buy. And so it's a very important part of the industry's kind of release schedule. And tobacco, premium cigar smoking actually like has a high point in the summer. And so you're kind of missing this year's highest volume sales period by doing it in July. And so we've always known that it's made a lot more sense to move it a little bit earlier in the year to where these cigars maybe are releasing by July rather than in September. And so all that being said, we've also had, because of COVID, there's been all these huge bottlenecks from production, from logistics, from getting the boxes. And so as I'm looking at the releases coming out, the brands that are engaging, the brands that are making announcements that maybe haven't done a shock and awe campaign in a couple of years because they've had limitations due to supply restrictions. I feel like this is a big list of exciting releases. You know, Rob and I, as he said earlier, we have an active thread with the Dojo team. We're already calling dibs on what we're going to review as they release and who's going to review what as we get our hands on these samples. So I feel like this is a pretty robust release year, honestly, and maybe more so than we've seen in the last 3 years. So, I totally understand the question and why that could be this is, the last show because they were contractually obligated. Next year is going to be a better year. I feel like they've made the most of it, and people have really leaned into the releases that they can finally come out with. I think some of these releases have probably been in the brain trust of some of these brands for the last 2 or 3 years, and they just haven't been able to get them out. So I feel like we're getting a bit of a bolstering of new releases that is going to create a lot of excitement, create a lot of energy around the industry, not to mention the boom we've been on for the last couple of years. So I'm pretty animated about it. I think this is going to be a really good show. And it will be interesting. To Rob's point is, did they save back enough that in 9 months time, they're going to be able to do another release cycle that is as impressive and, awe-inspiring and attractive as the one that I believe we're about to go into next week there with PCA.
It is next week. Isn't that scary?
I was like, oh, no, it's not that. Yeah, no, it's next week.
Here's the thing.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Rob, because I wanted to comment on your initial comment. Go for it.
I was just going to say, another thing that's interesting is you mentioned earlier in your read that Drew Estate is coming back to the PCA next year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to figure that they have known that it was going to be in March of next year, so they are going to hit the ground, bullets flying, hit the ground running, whatever cliche you want.
Oh, they're gonna dominate traffic. Yeah,
they're going to crush it. I'm wondering if any of the other companies that have backed out is this going to be that impetus to get them back in to rejoin PCA and give them, they have a bit of a leeway. They have like a lead really to know that, hey, it's going to be next year at this time. We're not really preparing anything for this year's show, so we can really double, triple, quadruple down on next year's. I'd be curious to see if that's something that is going to be in the works. But Randy, very, very well said. You used a couple of good buzzwords in there. I wanted to comment on them, but I forgot what they were. I think did you drop synergy in there? Maybe spreadsheets, I think.
If I can throw one more thing on what you just said, I'm sorry, Bear, but just what Rob said, I also think the Drew Estate return to the show is a big factor. I believe that what we've seen since Drew Estate left was what we previously had seen as middle tier brands kind of rise to the top as they've backfilled some of that space that Drew Estate off, had left over. And so maybe that's part of why we're seeing such an explosion of all these new releases. Is maybe some of them feel like this is their last chance to really be a headliner before the big dog comes back in and kind of maybe steals the show. If you guys remember 2019, and you walk in and the Drew Estate booth is a quarter of the goddamn floor, and I mean, it is the epicenter of the show. And so maybe this is also a little bit of an effort of some of those brands saying, hey, we want to stake our ground and make sure we don't lose any ground as that superstar character that Drew Estate is in our industry, comes back and maybe takes a little bit of the wind out of their sails.
Yeah. Well, it's a good point. Sorry, Bear, we keep cutting you off, but this is a great topic. And to Randy, to your point, you say it's their last chance to kind of be the big dogs, but it's a chance for them to really establish themselves moving forward. Yeah. Not really like their last hurrah, but really like, hey, I'm carving out my footprint, and this is, I'm digging my hole. This is my space.
Right.
And when you guys can come back, and that's great. It's good for the industry for you guys to be back. But this is my space, and you can't have.
I'm not giving up any ground to you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's great for this industry, man. It's exciting. God, I hadn't thought about this topic, Bear. Great question.
Yeah. I think to the Altadis is back this year in full force, and General STG is back under the Forge brand for now, and I think they're I'm pretty sure they're going to be back in full force in 2024 for both General and Forged. So it'll be a different show than the last couple of years. To this most recent point about these emerging brands like Tatuaje, Espinosa, Crowned Heads, they've kind of been fan favorites, of the, us, right? To put not too fine a point on it, over the years. But what I've seen over the last couple of shows is they've really emerged. Even you guys we can take Guy Fieri out of the conversation with Espinosa, and I would still say I would still throw them as these kind of emerging brands that kind of caught the fire and were really kind of those linchpins that kind of held the show together. They were exciting, and they were really good booths to go to and everything. Not to make light of anybody else, Steve Sock has been incredibly active at each PCA trade show that he's been a part of with releases, and this year is no different. I did want to go back to Randy's point. I don't want to be combative here, Randy. I can't, but I'm going to disagree with you, man. I'm not excited about this year's list of releases at all.
Oh, really?
What caught your eye? That was like, just to name a couple. Like, what caught your eye that we were like, that you're so super excited and you think it's great, and I'm sitting over here, I'm like, man, I feel
ho-hum about it. Really?
I wish I was drinking what you were drinking now. So
well, before I start,
let me Kool-Aid is what you're doing.
Well, let me give you credit, because I'll tell you, this ice mocha and the Bishop's blend, you nailed it, man. Going rich and heavy with the light beverage. I'm digging this. Let's start at the top. Ferry Otego has come out since the departure of the big five or big four, if you will. And you know, their new Suma, I'm super excited about. Obviously, you know, they took you know, top 10 honors on 2 releases for us last year. Super excited that he's got something out. I'll be honest, you know what, one, and I've got some in between these two, so I'm kind of hitting both ends of the spectrum for you. You know, Quesada is all of a sudden back in the news, back in the mix. You know, I feel like when I first came into the industry, everyone told me how they used to be a bigger brand, and they were very quiet for a few years, and we really didn't hear much about them. And I feel like they've stepped up. You know, you obviously named Crown Heads that you know, took this center stage. You know, obviously the Luciano partnership, we all lauded and believe that was such a great thing for the industry, and then they've split. So I'm super interested to see what happens there. You know, I know, you know, not to speak too much or take anything from you here, Rob, but you know, Cavalier is a brand that was like pretty tiny overall a couple of years ago, and they seem to like be coming up the ranks. HVC, you know, was a brand the first year that Robbie and I went together in 2019. Rainier was a no name that, you know, very few people had ever heard of, and now all of a sudden, you know, he's got his own factory, he's doing things. So I think just in general, just the shift of again, to your point, obviously you've got the Espinosas, the Crown Heads that like backfilled that, like, you know, they've moved from that mid tier to that larger tier, at least in perception and attention in general. But I feel like you said, you know, just these smaller brands that weren't coming out with anything that like was catching my interest, now all of a sudden are, and they're more in the know, I guess would be mostly what I'd say. And so that excites me, that I feel like they're stepping their game up, and they're trying to, you know, propel themselves into that like next tier of you know, of attention and media in general. And so just the fact that these brands that we weren't prioritizing covering at all are now brands that we feel like we absolutely have to go by and touch base with them and make sure that we're you know, catching up with what they've got going on.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd throw Black Star Line into that conversation as well. Another kind of a younger brand, an exciting brand. I know they've done most of their stuff with Aganorsa, but I think they're branching out, working with some other factories and bringing out some new things. So, and like you said, stepping into that next tier. And I think this is, if I'm that level of brand, like kind of that up and coming brand, and I see that, you know, next year the Drew Estates are coming back, and the others, these, I know it's Drew Estate, and I said Drew Estates, but I was referring to them as like these bigger companies, and I just don't like when people call them
Drew Estates. The Drew Estates of the world.
Of the world.
No, it's usually what I meant. It's usually a pet peeve of mine, Rob. But no, in your context, it didn't. I wasn't offended. I'm with you.
But that's why I wanted to clarify, just to make sure. But to know that, hey, things are changing next year, and if I'm ever gonna, you know, shoot my shot, and this year is the year to do it. And I'm hopeful that, you know, to this point, and again, I hadn't really thought about this, but I'm hopeful that we're going to see 5 or 6 different brands do that this year, that, you know, all of a sudden they become a brand that we have to cover.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm making a point to visit Eric this show. I've missed him a couple of times. I had him slated on the last day, and I missed him, so I'm not going to make that mistake 2 years in a row. And because his brand's something that I am excited to learn. I know you guys are huge fans of him over at Dojo. I know that you guys are big supporters of him, and so I'm definitely wanting to scope him out. I think I'm not sure. I need to check the big board to see if they're coming out with anything, or if they're even going to be in attendance. But I remember being on Cigar Dojo for an episode, and all of us collectively making fun of German engineered cigars, and then and then Eric kind of took the about face on it and smoked it and really enjoyed it. So I thought that was kind of funny. So I'm not sure if they're doing anything this year different, but I definitely want to step by Eric's booth and scope him out, because I think that'll be something that I really need to make amends with, because he seems like such a fascinating individual, and his cigars seem really good. haven't had the opportunity to smoke any of them either. So that's, but I trust in the dojo. Um, and so I think that'll be something I'm worth checking out. So it's funny that one question kind of ran me through the gamut of the other questions that I had for PCA. So we kind of had some really good discussion to it, but kind of to go back to the original point of next year, I think the point that I wanted to make on your initial point, Rob, was the thing that I'm going to see, particularly with, let's take Black Star Line as an example. You know, a smaller company, you know, different, you know, and limited resources, right? And doesn't own his own factory. So he is at the beck and call of the factory that he uses that he chooses to work with and stuff. And sometimes, I'm not saying with Eric, I'm just using him as an example because he doesn't have his factory, but sometimes that creates a problem in the pecking order, and you're beholden to the factory, which means you don't get your cigars when you're expecting to, perhaps, or when your expectation is, or, you know, whatever. And so by a lot of companies don't even release their cigars until Q1 of the following year, and bam, we're in another trade zone. So my concern is retailers going, and a lot of a lot of the shaking hands and kissing babies at booths is going to be a lot more apologizing and begging for forgiveness, because you want me to place another order with you, so and so, but I haven't gotten the cigars that I ordered back in July. What the heck is that all about? So, you know, I'm worried about that. I'm also, you know, the cliched discussion of every year. I'm worried about attendance for that show in particular. I don't know what it's going to happen, but I think it's going to be reflected in this. I haven't seen the final badge numbers for this year, but it's either going to be reflected in this year. We're going to see it in the aisles. It's going to be a little, you know, whether it's buzzing like it has been the last 2 years, or if it's a little bit of a dip, if we see that crank back up in there, or vice versa. I think it's one or the other. We're going to see, it's going to feel less like the last 2 years, which I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I've felt certainly a huge positive, like, jet setting vibe the last 2 years. A lot of people, it seems like a lot of great activity and stuff like that. And then or it's gonna take a dip, and then next year will, you know, the one in the spring will be big, or vice versa. That's my personal take on it.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I mean, it's obviously we can't see the future, so we don't really know. But yeah, I'd be curious to see how that's going to be. And to your point of you know, I ordered my cigars from you in July, and it's January, and I just got them, and you want me to buy some more stuff. I hear that. I think a lot of that. I mean, Randy touched a little bit on supply chain and things of that nature would have been, you know, loosening up, and we've been kind of catching up, you know, the post-COVID world. I don't know. I'm curious to see, but again, I hadn't thought about it in those terms. I think it's a great question. And now I was excited to go because I get to hang out with my buddies and see a bunch of people in the industry that I don't get to see very often, and talk with folks, and, you know, check out new cigars and all that stuff. And I always look forward to the show. But now I'm even more excited about it because I really want to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like that's just, that's a phenomenal question. I hadn't thought about it in those terms. And I'm hopeful that we're all wrong, that this show is going to be awesome. And then the one in March is going to be even better. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask you, Bear, because, you know, again, you know, you both have a lot more experience attending these shows than I do. And so I've kind of bought into a lot of the rhetoric and the you know, reasons that are used when we're there, and obviously 2019 was the you know, we had hit the bottom really, where that's when the articles were coming out of just like, man, these aisles are empty, you know, on days, you know, 4 and 5 and everything else. You know, what I've bought into, and I'm hoping they were true, and why, you know, I think most of us have been an advocate for it to move to an earlier period of the year, is that brick and mortars are so often, you know, thinly manned. You know, you've got a lot of experience in that yourself, working in brick and mortar for a lot of years, Bear. That because the summer months are so busy, these shops just can't afford to send the whole team out. They can't afford to close for a weekend to be able to attend. And then not to mention, and most trade shows in most industries are this way, is like you have them in these exotic and fun cities because it's a little bit of a vacation as well. And so you want to go to Vegas and you want to like catch a show and do some other stuff there. And in the dead heat of July, that there's some oppressive heat that keeps people from enjoying
Makes it less
that
fun.
trip.
Yeah, for sure.
It does. So I guess for me, I kind of position this back to you, Bear, as you do have a lot more retail experience than either Robbie or I, is like, do you not see that was one of the key reasons why we should see a higher brick and mortar attendance in an earlier period of the year where the sales volume isn't so critical that maybe they can close the shop, or maybe they just leave one person at home to man the shop, where they might not be able to have that luxury in the summer. And quite honestly, from experience of going to TPE, it is a much better experience being in Vegas in March than in the middle of July. So
Sure.
what do you think of that?
I think, well, no, to your point about the retailer, I think absolutely it's a better time of year because you can operate at a retail level a lot thinner in February and March than you can in the summer. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. I think not this first time, not this upcoming in March, but watch out for this. I'm telling you, this is going to happen because it seems to be the direction that they're going for long term, which is moving the trade show to February, March, April timeframe. What you're gonna see is a much larger gap. I call it the siesta of cigar retail, which is there's 2 times that this happens during the year. This is one of them. You go into most shops, especially ones that are huge PCA supporters, and the inventory is lighter. Because they're going to go order heavy. So they don't want to spend money leading up to the show. They want to spend it at the show. And that's where logistics have been a real huge problem, because even afterwards you're waiting for some of the stuff to come in. So the good retailers will bring in core stuff they'll go light on that. So you won't find your Perdomos, your Padrones, your Ashtons, your etc. leading up to the show, but you'll get it right after because they have those in stock and you order the deal, whatever it comes in. The other one, and this is going to be where it's going to be a drastic change, is most cigar manufacturers shut down for Christmas and December, and they shut down it's not like they don't do the American thing. They don't shut down work for a day or two. It's a month. Like Skip's really famous for showing his pictures of the Nica Sueña factory, where like everything's put up. It looks like everything's cleaned and put up, and it looks like it's a brand new factory, like, so to speak. So and they do that, and that's not any different than anybody else. It's a very, very common practice. Almost everybody does it, if not everybody. I don't want to loop everybody in, but that's a pretty common thing across the Dominican, Nicaragua, Honduras, etc. And so what you see in retail shelves is that post-Christmas, because a lot of people will blow out the end of the year, plus retailers don't want to have a lot of inventory on their shelves because they don't want to pay inventory tax on stuff. So they have their inventory stock really drops. And so in January, there's nobody to order from because the companies are still closed.
Mm-hmm.
So that sparseness continues. And now what you're going to see is, well, hell, if I'm going to PCA in a couple of months here, I'll just operate at as thin as I can these first couple of months so that I can spend big, at the show. And so what you're going to see from a cigar purchasing perspective and a consumer perspective is that siesta that I called it, in that stretches from the new year into February sometimes, is going to ultimately probably stretch through the entire first quarter and well into the second quarter. And so you're going to see that again down the road. It's not going to happen next year, maybe not even the year after that, but this is the direction that the PCA is going, for all intents and purposes that we see for the foreseeable future, it looks like, or at least it feels like. So that's going to be I think that's going to be the biggest watch out, is how the retailers navigate that. And I think some of them are going to operate exactly the way I said, just, economics.
Yeah, that's
interesting.
super interesting. Yeah. Again, we focus, we're more on the media side. Again, you play both sides of the coin as being a longtime retailer as well as a media member. We focus so much on that attendance. Just like you said, is there buzz? Are people excited to physically be here? But how that then translates to their buying habits, their stocking habits. Really interesting point. I appreciate you sharing that insight.
Yeah, I think orders in year 2 will be much bigger. In 2025, I think orders will be much bigger than they ever were in July. So I think that take attendance out of it, the conversation for 2 seconds. The people that are there in 2025 will order bigger than they have at any other summer show. I will say that. I absolutely think that's going to happen. So, well, awesome. Well, last 2 questions, gentlemen. We'll close out the night. Thank you so much for being a part of this show and this conversation. Really enjoyed our pairings tonight. Really enjoyed our cigars. Enjoyed the conversation as always. And this brings us to our Asylum segment, which is always brought to you by Asylum Cigars. Refuge is more than just a physical place. It can be a state of mind. Some of life's greatest reflections can be found in our own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for Asylum Cigars. Light up an asylum and choose your refuge. Now, the way I'm going to frame this one, I had you guys on last year where we actually had this segment too, and so I wanted to tweak it a little bit. And I want to apologize and preface that the way I'm going to ask this question is going to seem like I'm insulting Randy, and I'm not. I promise I'm not. But
Rob already loves this segment more than any other.
Man.
But
I sponsored this segment actually. I don't know if you got the read wrong. Sorry, go ahead.
But Randy, you're a very boisterous individual, very passionate, and so is Rob to a certain extent. You're just more vocal about it to a point. But I think, and I'm in a similar vein, so I'm gonna throw myself in there too. But like every so often, we smoke a cigar, and in this case, the segment is typically talking about smoking a cigar alone. But I'm gonna open it up to all experiences. And you guys talked earlier about your experience with Casa Fuente, where you don't really remember anything else. You remember the pairing. But I'm talking about the cigar specifically. What's the last time that you remember where you smoked a cigar and it just shut you the hell up?
Well, now I get why this is an insult on Randy, because Randy never shuts the hell up. I get it. I get it.
Fair. Yeah, it's fair.
You're very excited. You're very excited about stuff. So right, I'm
an excitable guy.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to preface it. I wanted to preface it.
Randy, this was directed at you. You go first.
If you, I mean, honestly, it's been a great joy of mine to be able to be a voter on the Cigar of the Year situation with Cigar Dojo, and honestly, that those are the cigars that I vote as my number one. The H99. Man, I have a hard time not saying it's the best tasting cigar I've ever had in my life. The year before, the Elegancia showed me how a light erect cigar could be so flavorful and so complex in its overall flavor. And so I'm simple. I'm it's probably a boring answer, but you could pretty much look back at the Cigar of the Year lists from Cigar Dojo since I've been part of the team, and whatever took number one, either the number one on the regular list or the number one on the limited release list, are usually the cigars that just blow me away, that like have me look back at it and think, what did they do differently with this tobacco? What did they do differently that like it tastes so extraordinarily impressive over all the other dozens and dozens and dozens of cigars that I smoke on a regular basis. So I'm almost gonna cop out and say the H99 this year was the most recent one that I had that I was just absolutely floored on. I'm looking to my humidor to see if something else stands out in that vein. I'm like you said, I'm a boisterous, passionate, and easily excitable individual. I have a lot of cigars, thankfully that that really like floor me, that make me go, wow, this does warrant a few moments of silence of just like of really thinking through what I'm experiencing and trying to connect as many adjectives as I possibly can to it. So yeah, that's.
Well, let's talk about the H99 for 2 seconds, Randy. So like I remember, so I had the privilege of having a great conversation and shared a cigar with you at the Great Smoke 2 years ago, and afterwards, where we smoked the Supreme Leaf with Terrence and a couple of the other Dojo Coop clan, and we're all having a great afternoon and everything. And you and I had a great conversation. I remember we talked about a lot of things that day, but we talked about, like, both of us were really excited about how this particular one smoked and how we were really enjoying it and everything. What was it about the H99 that you smoked the first time where you just were like, I guess now that you've had some time to reflect on it, that just like really, really kind of like put you into perspective of like, wow, I'm getting this note, or the way it smokes, or the draw, or like what was it's like that really just captivated you, like you were talking about?
The complexity and the intensity of the unique flavors, so often cigar, even a great cigar, can be I won't say one note. I'm really into complexity, I'm really into transition. So but that being said, like so many cigars is like I focus on this one flavor, and that's what captivated me, whether we're talking about the H. Upman 175th, which was one of my all-time favorite cigars for a couple of years, and still amazing cigar.
Great smoke.
That one impressive. The Hot 10 is such. I go back to that one with such frequency and regularity that I love it. The Desert Rose from Southern Draw, like,
yeah,
on all those cigars, there's this one character that I absolutely lock in on, and that becomes the resounding, like, number one flavor adjective that I think of when I think of that cigar. For me, the H99, and it's not that they don't, all those other cigars I mentioned don't have complexity, because they do. And there's these secondary and tertiary flavors that, like, I'm so impressed with and keep my interest engaged. But there's clearly one standout flavor. I feel like for me, the reason that I like have to bite my tongue from calling H99 the best cigar I've ever smoked is that, like, it delivers on this sweetness, on this spiciness, on this baking spice separately, on texture, on the draw, the signature Drew Estate, voluminous smoke output. There's so many different things going on that any one of them you could hang your hat on and say this is the primary characteristic of the cigar, and then maybe the next time you smoke it, you say no, it's this one, that's the primary. And that like each one of them are working in parallel and in a harmonious synergy with each other, and staying at the forefront of the flavor. That's what impresses me about it the most. Is just like there's just so much going on that, like, like I said, my ADHD mind can, just kind of pivot from one to the other and be like, is that my favorite characteristic, or is that one my favorite? And that they're all, like I said, it engages me, it makes me think about it, it forces me to shut up a little bit and put a little more thought into it than some of the other cigars that I also enjoy at such a high level.
Nice. Rob, what about you?
I've got two. Randy, you touched on one of them. You know me well enough to know that the Haute 10, not Hot 10, Haute 10, like Haute Couture, from Illusione. That's one of my absolute favorites, in particular in the Gordo size, which is the 6x56, which is one of the bigger ring gauges that I do tend to gravitate towards. I'm not really like, this is really the only cigar that I gravitate towards in that ring gauge. So I guess I really shouldn't say that, but I think for all the reasons that Randy said, every time I smoke that cigar, I find something new that I love about it. It's an expensive cigar, yet I find myself always having at least 5 of those on hand. It's one of the few cigars that always go back to. When Randy says that, you know, I pull up short of calling that the best cigar that I've ever smoked, and I feel the same way about the Hot 10. And to me, there's that just a little bit of, it's that earthy sweet. I always come back to that earthy sweet. With whenever you get into any of Dion's stuff, you're always going to get some of that cabinet spice. You're going to get some of that elegant nuance, is what I like to call it, of those cigars. And that's when I say that, like, every time I smoke it, it's something different that I love about it. But another one, and this cigar just totally caught me off guard. I think the boys at the Dojo had smoked this before me. Randy, I think you even smoked it before I did, and you guys were talking it up and how great it was. And I was just like, dude, come on, that brand, really? Like, why is everybody excited about the cigar? But the H. Upmann 175th anniversary Churchill, that cigar for me is, I don't go back to it quite as often as the Haute 10. Just because I don't have that much stock of it. I think I have a couple in my humidor, and I thought about smoking one tonight. That cigar just blew me away, man. It's so good. It's a big cigar, 7x50. Like, to me, that's damn near a 3-hour smoke. I could have lit this up right when we started the show, and I'd be finishing it right about now. And the nuance of flavor there, I mean, it tends towards a little bit more on the leathery side than I usually kind of tend to on my palate. But I don't know, there's just something about it. There's some secret sauce in there that it's something really cool that I don't even know about. And I just, every time I smoke that cigar, it's one of those where, like, Randy, we talk about this on the show sometimes, where you're taking a couple puffs of the cigar, you're talking with your buddies, you take another puff, and you stop and look. Like, it's one of those, I stop and look at the cigar. So for me, those were the two. As soon as you ask that question, and they're not really new cigars, but I mean, I think the H. Upmann came out in 2019. Note 10's been around longer than that. Maybe not. I don't really know the release dates. I'm not good with, but I know they're not super new. But those, when it comes to, like, if I had to tell somebody what my palate looks for, I'd give them those two cigars.
Nice. Yeah, Robbie, I must confess, you caught me off guard a little bit more than Randy's picks, because I know Randy's loves the H99. So I will say that I was surprised to see you to say that it's the, you know, you try not to say it's the greatest cigar that you ever smoked, but that you have such high affinity for it. Not that it's a bad pick or anything like that. I didn't know that it was it impressed you that much. So that's cool.
Which one are you talking about? The Haute 10?
No, him with the H99.
Oh, I see.
With him. Yeah. So with you caught me off guard more with your picks. So, but just because I feel like I know your palate pretty well, and I know some of the brands that you kind of gravitate towards, and neither one of those were the ones that I've typically hear from you. So that's
you thought I was going Tatuaje for sure.
Yeah, I thought you were. Yeah, gotta be honest.
The Michael, right?
Call the elephant out in the room. Yeah, there you go.
If I had to go Tatuaje, it'd probably be either the JV13.
Oh yeah, God,
or
that was
the CQ1. Is that the one that CQ1? Then they did CQ2.
Yep.
The CQ1, because I was lucky enough that they did that for, God, I can't remember the name of the B&M.
Mission,
they did that for.
Mission
Pipe. Yeah, Mission Pipe. There used to be one in Pleasanton, which is right down the way. So I was able to score a couple boxes of those. That's a damn good cigar. The 10th anniversary Bella Ancre Reserva. That's one of those unicorn cigars. I can't really get my hands on it anymore, but those would be up there for Tatuaje. But yeah, those two cigars for me, the H. Upmann, which again, total surprise, because it's not really a brand that I gravitate towards, but I probably would never have even smoked it, to be honest. But everybody, I think Eric may have even handed me one. It's like, dude, you have to smoke this. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I lit it up. I was like, God damn, you're right. I did have to smoke this because it's delicious. But the Haute 10, I think if I had to pick one, that would be it. And that's, I just can't quit that cigar.
The Desert Island cigar.
yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, gentlemen, the time has come. It is the last question of the night. So here we go. It is our Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust segment. It is our curveball segment. Fastballs or curveballs. Doesn't matter. Since the company's inception, Steve Saka's been knocking them out of the park. 8 consecutive years in the consensus top 3. Congratulations to our good friend, Mr. Steve Saka. So, gentlemen, I want you fast forward with all these changes that are coming, with changes to the PCA, for example. the fact that none of us on this panel rely on the cigar industry for our primary income. I wanted you guys to look forward to 10 years from now. And is your involvement in the cigar industry the same, larger, or smaller?
Randy just took a drink, so I guess I'll go. I'd say for me, it's probably going to be about the same. If it's going to trend in either direction, it would probably be smaller. And I think a lot of that just has to do that I'm really satisfied in my professional life. I don't know that I've worked in the cigar industry full time. That was my livelihood. I did it for a few years. I loved it. If that opportunity came up again, I don't know if I would get back into it. I guess it would depend. But I do enjoy the industry, but I think I like where I've settled, where Randy and I get to do our show every week. We get to go to the trade shows and still, be a part of everything, and get to do shows like yours, Bear, and share our opinions and write a review every 3 or 4 years. But I can imagine, like, for me, probably hopefully it's about the same. I like where we're at. Maybe some amazing opportunity comes up and makes me think about getting back into it, but I can't see myself quitting it because I just enjoy it too much. So I think I don't know if that's a cop-out answer, but probably about the same.
All right. Well, I mean, for me, it's 10 years from now, I'd like to think it's going to be more. I did have a job change a year and a half ago, and when I went to go announce my new position and where I was going, most people that know me well, I'm talking family, friends, people that have known me forever, everyone assumed that I was going to transition to the cigar industry full time. I'm not closed minded to that. I would say, it's something I'm passionate about. I see myself as a person that could bring more attention from flavor passionate people to premium cigars. I think we still have so many people that don't even know this side of tobacco exists. I would love to see myself in my life and my career and my efforts be a catalyst for more education, more people understanding the flavors that they enjoy, and whether it be chocolate or coffee or beer, can translate for wine, can translate to premium tobacco. I'd love to write more articles. I wrote an article that was, something I'm wildly proud of, considering what I've been able to do in my career. One of the things I'm very proud of is writing just a simple recap article on the Great Smoke event. And so I'd like to try and find a way to carve more and more of my own time into bringing attention to this industry, and I'd love to continue to show up at these events and have one of these days George Padron's gonna see me and smile and be like, Randy, how you doing? I'm not there yet, but but yeah, I think optimistically I like to think it'd be more.
Fantastic. Randy, you know that neither of us are in a position to hire you, right?
You never know who's watching, Mike. You never know who's
because that felt like an interview. I feel like we were just. I mean, I am hiring an intern if you're interested.
But to all the VPs of sales and marketing out there in the cigar industry, I could be a high level contributor on your team. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Mr. Craft Beer,
LinkedIn.
Craft Savvy
LinkedIn
Randy.
is right. LinkedIn.
Well, obviously.
Just holla at me on LinkedIn. Slide into my DMs. We'll make something
exactly.
That's good. Always look forward to the fact that I can bolster someone's career on this show. So that's great, Randy. I mean, if that's your desire and that's your wish and everything, I wish you nothing but luck, man. And that's I think the industry would be better with more of Randy Griggs than less. So excited about the prospect of it. So
yeah, I like that.
Well, gentlemen, again, my humblest thanks to you guys for hanging out with me for so long, late on a Sunday. Not as late for you guys as it is for me. It's past midnight here, but still late enough. You guys do have families, and for you guys to take some time, especially this close to the PCA where you guys are going to be away from your families. It means a whole great deal to me. So thank you so much for your time. Great conversation as always. I love having you guys. I definitely will do it again if you'll honor me. But thank you guys for joining me tonight. So
always an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, Bear, this was a lot of fun. Always look forward to chatting. And it's and I'm glad that we got to be part of Randy stumping to get a job in the industry. I'm like, I hope that it's someday we can point back to this moment and be like, yeah, that's how you got this job.
That's right. That's
right.
And
you're welcome. You need to buy us dinner, or you buy Bear dinner. You at least buy me a drink if I was there.
I love it.
Yeah, appreciate it, Bear. This is a lot of fun.
All right, so check out the Cigar Dojo Flavor Odyssey, hosted by Rob Rasmussen and Randy Griggs every Wednesday. Lively conversation, great pairings of all sorts, all kinds. Every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Live 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. On Eastern time. So you get to enjoy it at a great time on a great day of the week. Wednesday, it's the middle of the week, and you get to pair lively libation with some great cigars and enjoy the great conversation between these gentlemen and common contributors, Eric and Jordan as well, and as well as other guests too. So great show. Go back through the archives, guys. They've got some great stuff, especially the most recent stuff that we were talking about tonight with just kind of exploring different cigars and trends and everything like that. It was just again, I think it's some of your finest work. So go ahead and check that out, guys. It's fantastic. And the Unicorn Slayer episode, which was really good. I was going to talk about it, but we ran out of time. Anyway, really appreciate all those likes, shares, and comments. Keep them coming. You are watching the cigar. If you are watching the show on Facebook, you can also check us out on our YouTube channel, LLC Fumar. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you are listening to us later, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure you download, subscribe, and review. Hit the unsubscribe button if you already are a subscriber, but don't forget to hit subscribe again, resubscribe, because that helps my numbers, makes me look a lot better, so that guys like these will agree to come back on my show whenever I ask them to. So for everyone out there, we really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. We will be not having a show next week. We'll be at PCA in Las Vegas. So good times. These guys will have a show on Wednesday, though, so definitely want to check it out. Like I said, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. For everyone out there, this was our 255th take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studio of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, Bear Duplessis, as always. He's Rob Rasmussen. He's Randy Griggs. Guess what, everybody? We'll see you next time.